Hi, I'm TJ,
And I'm Mark.
and we're ranking the AEW talent that showed up on AEW television for the month of June. The parameters for this list were they had to have at least 2 TV appearances or 3 appearances when you include Dark and Elevation into those appearances.
And it's not based on who's our favorite, it's based on how we believe the company utilized them for the month of June.
Correct. All right, perfect. So we're starting our list, obviously with 2.0 here. You got Angelo and Magic Matt. They had 5 TV appearances, including the loss of Blood and Guts. And they also had 3 Dark and Elevation appearances, 2 matches which they won, and then 1 appearance with a run-in with Garcia against Yuta after his Ring of Honor pure title. So, Mark, where do we put them?
I mean, they didn't do too much. They weren't really there to promote. I mean, they did do the run in on Dark to promote, but while I love them, they're just background characters as I see them right now.
I do feel Angelo had a prominent spot in the match, though, right? He was the bloodiest out of
Yeah, he
everybody.
definitely was the bloodiest.
So I give a little bit of props there to the storytelling he put into that part of the match. I'm thinking we put them low B
Yeah, I
for right
think
now.
solid. Yeah, low to solid B.
Perfect.
And
Perfect.
let's see how other people go around them.
Absolutely. All right. So next we have Aaron Solo. He had 1 television loss this month, but he had 5 Dark and Elevation appearances with 1 win, 2 losses, and then 2 appearances coming to the ring with QT or Nick Camrata or whoever it was from the factory.
Yeah.
Where are we putting that?
And his television match probably most likely was the buy-in pay-per-view.
Correct. That's exactly what it was.
Okay. I mean, he's there to lose. He's there to be second fiddle to QT, and that's about it. So pretty low for my list.
I agree. I would say D. I think he's on Dark and Elevation a decent amount. I think the factory's good there. Um, I kind of wish they get a little bit more TV time. The one thing I have a problem with AEW is they give them all these wins on shows like Dark and Elevation, which most people aren't watching. Um, and then they set them up to lose. So whenever they're on television, it's an instant, oh, they're not going to win this anyway. But I agree with you. I'm thinking D for right now, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So next we have the Acclaimed. They had, I want to preface this first. We have the Acclaimed. I didn't split them up even though Bowens had an injury because he came out with Max every match. I feel like they're a team through and through, even if one's injured and, he's teaming with the Gun Club or whatever. So I just want to preface that Bowens didn't have any matches. He just was appearances.
That's such a positive. That's such a positive about AEW where somebody is injured, but they're still given TV time every week with their tag team partner.
Absolutely,
and it's a huge crowd reaction for that, and it kept him relevant. So Bowens isn't forgotten, especially during Pride Month.
Right.
Well, Max is just on TV every week.
Right, doing good matches. I mean, again, it's kind of the same thing you were talking about. They had 5 TV spots, 2 wins, 1 loss, 2 appearances where they weren't wrestling, just kind of there. And then they had 3 Dark and Elevation matches, which they won all 3. So they're definitely on more of a hot streak this month. But I think whether they win or lose, it's just about them being on TV, getting the crowd really into it because the crowd is really behind them, and just giving them that time to shine as a unit. So with that being said, honestly, I'm thinking A. I could be swayed to B, but I'm thinking A for them just.
No, it's definitely right now all we have in B is 2.0. So it's definitely above 2.0, and I would go with A. They might be a lower A when it comes out, but Max is obviously given a lot of freedom. He's gotten in trouble before, but he gets to create his own raps, and he has time for that. And it's a big part of the show, and the crowd loves it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So next we have Adam Cole. He had 5 TV appearances, 1 loss at the pay-per-view at Forbidden Door. I'm going to preface that with saying he's injured. We know that he's been hurting, so they obviously didn't want to put him in much physical stuff before the pay-per-view. And then obviously he wasn't in any darker elevation stuff. And his one match, even though he lost, was for the IWGP title, which is a big spot in my opinion. So where are we putting?
Well, we're not doing May. He won the Owen tournament in the end of May, so he wore the Owen Hart belt for half of June. So I mean, that was like
sure,
they were trying to show that off.
Absolutely.
And it was kind of like his job because he's done Japan before. It was major his job to promote the pay-per-view and get it over. It was kind of confusing, but I think that had to do with they weren't sure who was going to be in that four-way match and whatnot. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think that he did a good job until Okada came over and Jay White came over and all that stuff, and doing a little bit with Hangman just to get them on the right track to get to Forbidden
Adam
Door.
Cole was the main one building the match to a match that you didn't even know who was going to be in it or what it was going to be. And he was building towards a match he might have not even been in.
Sure, absolutely. So obviously we're thinking A here.
Yeah, definitely A.
Are we thinking above or behind the Acclaimed?
I would put him above the Acclaimed.
I agree with that. Absolutely. All right. So next we have the other AEW talents in that IWGP title match with Hangman. He was on TV 4 times in the month of June. 3 matches, 2 wins, 1 loss. Obviously, the loss was the IWGP title shot at Forbidden Door. Obviously, a bigger push to get this match, like we were just talking about with Cole. All the same stuff kind of fits in with Hangman. But what are your thoughts?
I feel like he's going to be lower than Adam Cole because Cole was on commentary, I believe, too, to help promote this when he wasn't. He did have his time where he called out Okada, but I believe Adam Cole interrupted that anyway. So I feel like he was just lesser out there than Adam Cole, but he still contributed to promoting the match.
I agree with that. And I feel like the only reason he called out Okada, and this is just me, thinking about it, is because he wasn't in that battle royal for the interim champion, right? So obviously they needed to figure out how do we get him out of that discussion after losing to Punk. And I think that was the best way to do it without putting too much thought and effort into it, knowing where that was leading. So now obviously Adam Cole's ahead of him because he did more for that lead in, but do you feel Hangman did more than the Acclaimed this month?
Yeah, I mean, that title match was a big deal in that card, so.
Perfect. Yeah, I agree. All right, so next we have Alan Angels. No TV appearances. He had 3 Dark and Elevation appearances. Only 1 match, which was an 8-man, which the Dark Order lost to the Factory. And then he had 2 other appearances where he came out with other members of the Dark Order for their matches. Obviously, we're looking at 3 appearances here. With no wins, and obviously, we know that he's no longer with the company.
His last official month with the company. He's 24 years old, looking to go prove himself and come back a bigger star. And I think he goes in D, and he would know that because the company didn't utilize him or most of Dark Order this month.
Absolutely, and I'm gonna put him behind Solo. Obviously, Solo had the buy-in match, was in a little bit more of a prominent role than most members of the Dark Order. So obviously, Alan's going to go behind him there. Speaking of Dark Order, we're going to go into Alex Reynolds. Again, no TV appearances, but he was on Dark and Elevation 5 times this month. He had 1 win, 2 losses, and then 2 appearances coming out with other members of Dark Order for their matches. Where we putting him?
Sounds like he goes right in front of Alan Angels because he had more matches.
I agree. I think the Factory with their buy-in stuff is going to be like the highest ranked Dark Elevation people, in this go through, but for sure. All right. So next we have Andrade. He had 3 TV appearances. 1 win. I put that intermittent battle royal as appearances for everybody just because it wasn't like an actual win-loss match, right? I don't want everybody to show losses for that. But I do want to make a point that he was the Joker in that, which was him coming back from some time off. And then he also did have a win on Dark or Elevation. I'm not sure what show, but he did have one of those YouTube shows with a win behind him. Not a lot of utilization for the month. I think July is going to be a bigger month for them. I mean, we'll see down the line. But where are you thinking for
Well, I
him?
think he was supposed to be on the pay-per-view. The rumor was Osprey. He was kept off of it because of AAA and CMLL politics with New Japan.
Sure.
I do feel like the thing Andrade, they didn't use him that well, but what they are using him for is to help promote his new tag team partner, Roosh. And it's nice to have his former tag team partner, because they've teamed before, be out there helping promote him.
I agree with that. Here's my thoughts on where to put him, and you can sway me a little bit either way, but I'm thinking C. And the reason I'm thinking that isn't because I don't think he's a good talent. It's not. He's being used well for Roosh, and we see where that might be leading with Lucha Brothers. But I look at June as, if you weren't in a big thing with Forbidden Door, you weren't in a big thing for Blood and Guts, the company didn't really care. It's unfortunate as it is to say. I'm just being honest.
And I don't need to sway you. He goes in C, and I feel like if you just look at his AEW career, it's a C because his in-ring work is awesome. I would love for him to have more matches, but I just feel like every storyline he's involved in, they just dropped the ball. They went through 5 different managers with him at this point. Hopefully, tagging with Roosh really elevates him further up the card. Even though I don't want him in a tag team, I would rather have him be singles, but he needs to be on TV more wrestling.
I agree with that. And I think that will come. I think this month, I think not being able to be on Forbidden Door hurt him. Yeah. I think if he would have been able to be on that card, he would have been a lot higher for the month. But obviously your focus is on, hey, we have these New Japan guys coming in, for a pay-per-view at United Center. We need to use them and utilize whoever we can.
Yeah, I felt like the Rampage right before he was against Phoenix, and that match was fantastic. And that was a sorry you can't be on the pay-per-view match, and they put on a pay-per-view quality match, but it just felt like second thought right before the pay-per-view Friday night and a Rampage.
Exactly. I mean, those Rampage openers and main events are always great matches because that's hyping the crowd back up, the live crowd from Dynamite, and obviously taking them out on a good note. So they're always going to have killer matches at the beginning and end of that hour. But again, it's just a Rampage main event. It's nothing like make or break. You know what I mean? Over the course of the month. Okay. All right. So next we have Anna Jay. She had 2 TV appearances, both run-ins, no matches. But she did have 3 Dark and Elevation matches where she won all 3. So a lot of her run-in stuff is, this Athena Jade storyline. So, I mean, I'm thinking low C.
Yeah, she hasn't been on TV. I don't think she's had a match this year on TV. And she's the Queen of Dark, it seems like, but.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that, I mean, we talk about it all the time. They don't give enough time for female storylines to take off, and I think it's because they're like, we have 3 to 4 spots in the week that we're going to give them, but then they're trying to push 10 talents in those 4 spots. People get lost in that shuffle. I'm hoping July becomes a better month, now that, a lot of the New Japan stuff is done and over with. We're building new feuds, hopefully she's in a bigger arc towards this Athena Jade thing and into matches is my hope.
Seem like they're making more women's tag teams even without a belt. So maybe we'll see some TJ stuff again, but we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So next we have Anthony Ogogo. Not on TV at all. He did have 3 appearances on Dark and Elevation, 2 wins, and then just another appearance with the Factory. But I didn't put this in my notes, but I watched in Dark last week. I believe it was last week. He's doing a lot of commentary on Dark, good or bad. I mean, it's putting at least a little bit more of a spotlight on him. So I want to at least recognize that that's going on.
Okay. So right now I would move him to the highest of the D if he's actually getting a shot at another job in the company.
I wouldn't. I would put him behind Solo.
Okay. Oh, because the pay-per-view, yeah.
Correct, exactly. Solo was in the buy-in, whether it was a win or a loss. He got a prominent spot.
Yes, definitely.
where Anthony, whether he's fighting through an injury or whatever it is, or, he's got a very unique voice. He's got, the European accent. So I don't know if that's helping or, just to give a little bit of a different sound to what's going on. But, it's not like he's doing it on TV. He's doing it on YouTube. So
Yes.
I don't want to give it too much of a hype, but I definitely will then put it ahead of, the couple Dark Order members at the moment. All right. So next we have Athena. She had 6 television appearances, 1 win, 5 other appearances, run-ins with this whole Jade feud, promos, whatever, just build up to the Jade stuff. And then she also has a darker elevation match. I'm not sure which, but that was also a win.
And she debuted at Double or Nothing, right?
Correct.
Right around then. So this is her first real month in the company. She's
Absolutely
been on a lot. They're giving her time to shine in promo too. I would like to see her in ring more. They're obviously building up to the match with Jade. But up until that point, Jade's still fighting people that aren't even on the list.
Right. I agree. I think I would put her above Andrade. I think she had more television time than him. They're giving it time, I know I just said that they're not giving enough people time, right? But they're giving whatever is going on with Jade time, and Athena's part of that. So Athena's getting the time. And I don't mind the slow burn on this, but give us a few more matches with Athena so the casual audience who didn't see her, I don't watch I don't watch WWE, so I don't know how much main roster time she had. I know she had some NXT stuff. But the part of your audience that doesn't know her that well, give them the time to see how good of a worker she is. So the Jade feud means a little bit more than it will if she's just doing run-ins with Statlander. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think like that one promo where her and Statlander were mocking Jade and the baddies, that was a totally different side of Athena that you're seeing. But we just need to see her in the ring more and on TV, not just on YouTube.
Yeah, and I think that's like you just mentioned that promo, so I want to mention, I think that was a good way of showing her as a person, versus like something scripted, something where, a lot of the times they put some of the female talent in these backstage segments. You can tell they're not super comfortable with that yet. This felt like they didn't feel like they had to do anything but be themselves, and it showed through for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Next, our first New Japan talent on the list. Normally, New Japan's not going to be on here, but obviously building the Forbidden Door. They had a lot of TV time in AEW, so I wanted to recognize that through our list here, but we have Aussie Open. They had 6 TV appearances, so they were part of the big haul of promoting Forbidden Door. They had 2 losses in the 2 matches they had, and then obviously 4 other appearances coming out with Ospreay. They were a big build of this New Japan pay-per-view. I feel that they're pretty important, even though they're not technically on the AEW roster, for getting buys or, obviously it's sold out right away. So it's not for getting, butts in the seats at the arena, but 100% it's building that casual fan audience to buy into this pay-per-view, which I think is a big deal.
But I think their first match was a 6-man tag, and that match, while it was good and they were exciting too, everyone in that match's job was to get over Will Ospreay to the American audience so people could start to see his moves. Correct. Without burning too many single matches. And they are part of his team, and it worked great for Will Ospreay, and it helped them too.
Yeah. So I'm thinking B, but what is your opinion? Do you think that they had, and this is kind of interesting because do we put them above or below 2.0? Because it's kind of what build was better. Was it the Blood and Guts build, or was it your New Japan build? It's an interesting thing to think about, but
I would put them below 2.0. 2.0 had some promo time, or at least a little, with Matt Menard talking, and he does the intros and stuff, where Aussie Open was just there as background characters more. But while they were prominent, I don't think they were better than 2.0 for the month.
For sure. I agree with that. All right. Next, we have Bobby Fish. both members of Red Dragon are dealing with injuries. But he was in a promo with Darby this month with all the Sting stuff. With Kyle O'Reilly hurting Sting and being the reason he's injured, and Darby, kind of avenging Sting in that way. Bobby had 4 TV appearances, 2 wins, and then 2 other appearances and backstage promo stuff. And then he also had 1 Darker Elevation win. He won all his matches this month, 3 matches, including being injured, but he obviously didn't do anything at Forbidden Door because of the injury and stuff like that. Where do we think he falls for the month of June?
Yeah, I definitely think Red Dragon was going to be on that pay-per-view somehow, maybe in an Elite versus Bullet Club match, and everything was changed with both Bobby Fish and O'Reilly being hurt. So really, he falls off at the end of the month.
Sure. So what are we thinking? We thinking C?
Yeah, I think C, probably lower than Andrade.
Okay, I'll give that. Actually, no, I think he did better than Andrade this month. And the reason I say that, he had 3 wins this month. You know what I mean? Like he had 3 matches, 3 wins, versus Andrade. Let me scroll back just a second. With Andrade, he had 3 appearances. He had 1 win.
1 win. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think Fish had a bigger push in that sense.
I think that's very fair.
Cool. All right. Next we have Britt Baker, DMD. Britt was on TV 3 times this month, a little bit less than normal. 2 losses, 1 promo leading up to her match with Storm, and nothing on YouTube. How do we feel about Britt for the month of June?
I mean, this was one of the first pay-per-views she's missed, especially in the last year. So that's, she's a little bit lower than how she normally would be. I feel like some of the promos teased more the turn on Jamie Hayter, but they never really went with anything with it. It was just that one promo talking about, it was more towards Toni Storm about, people that pick up the belt that they didn't win. Well, Jamie Hayter did the same thing with the Owen belt.
Sure.
But that's just a long burn for that. So this is sadly going to be one of her lower months.
Yeah, I'm thinking she's in C, just in front of Anna Jay as of where things sit right now. The reason I say that, she had 2 matches. She lost both of them. Obviously, helping with that build for Tony versus Thunder for the title.
But that felt like the 50-50 booking that Toni Storm just lost to Britt the month prior in the tournament, and now they had to build Toni Storm back up and gave her a win over Britt to help face Rosa.
Sure, but I don't mind that. I'm not a fan of 50-50 booking, but I don't mind in the build-up for the women.
It's a perfect person to beat to help for Toni Storm to get that push, though.
Correct. And I also think, we only had 1 women's match at the pay-per-view this month, right? So I kind of take the idea of any female talent not being on the card for Forbidden Door is not a big deal, just because you only had that 1 match, because New Japan doesn't have any female talent, right? So you kind of take it with a grain of salt in that. Yeah. But again, not a lot of TV time versus anything with this Jade Athena program or Jade Statlander, wherever that's going to end up. They were on TV constantly. And Britt had half the TV time of them. So I want to put her, in front of Anna, behind Andrade. I think next month I'll pick back up for her. I just think with the Forbidden Door pay-per-view and the focus on building Storm up for this Rosa match, other female talent just didn't get the time that they should have,
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Next we have Brody King. Only 1 TV appearance. Nothing crazy, and it was just a promo. Unfortunately, he wasn't in the Battle Royal for the Interman. He had 2 Dark and Elevation appearances, which actually put him on this list. Without his last Elevation appearance, I wouldn't have been able to even throw him up here for us to rank him, which would have been crazy in my eyes. But he had 1 win, and then accompanied Julia Hart to the ring for her match. What do you think of Brody for June?
I think he needs to be a low C. he hasn't been around much, and maybe even it could even be lower. He's just the background promo guy for June. We're going to
Sure.
see a big switch in July,
Sure.
but with June, he's just the big guy of the dark or House of Black right now, and that's it. We don't really know too much about him still.
Is shitty as it sounds, I'm thinking I'm putting him between Alex Reynolds and Alan Angels.
Okay.
Just because he only had one match on a YouTube show. Alex had more matches than that. The only reason he was on national TV was for House of Black promo where he didn't even talk. So I don't want to give that the be all end all. So unfortunately for Brody, he's going to go very, very low on this list for the month of June.
I mean, we're only one Rampage into July. I think this is somebody we could see make a major jump in the list.
Oh, for July. For sure. Speaking of House of Black, next we got Buddy Matthews, who's said to be injured as well. He had 2 TV appearances. He lost his match, but that was an All-Atlantic Championship tournament match, which is a big deal to be highlighted in that tournament, along with that same promo we just talked about. And then he was on YouTube twice. He did have a win on YouTube, and then one appearance with the Julia Hart stuff. But I mean, that All-Atlantic Championship tournament match puts him a little higher on the list for me. What are you thinking about Buddy this month?
Yeah, I mean, he has the almost same record as Brody King, right? I'm looking at it. But because he was in that tournament match, which people were very excited to see him versus Pac.
Right.
So, I mean, he's definitely House of Black hasn't been on TV much as it is, except their promo. So,
well, and I think what hurt him this month is we're building the New Japan. They just came out of the feud with Lucha Brothers, and Pac, which Lucha can't be on the New Japan card, right? So they're getting out of that feud. They can't really do much with that. They gave Buddy, a tournament spot, which I think is huge. And he lost, like he said, he lost to Pac, which is the guy that won the belt. So in my eyes, that's a big deal. I'm thinking C. I'm thinking probably, I mean, you tell me either.
I think it would go above Andrade because Andrade was in the tournament match too, right? But we kind of knew the outcome that he wasn't winning.
Andrade was not in the tournament.
Oh, I'm thinking of Penta.
Yes.
So then he would still be above Andrade.
Yeah, because I mean that tournament match puts you in a prominent spot.
Yeah,
it's kind of a big deal. So I agree there. All right, next we have Jericho. Obviously leading up to Blood and Guts. Big deal. Guys on commentary every week. Looking at his TV appearances, I have him down for 7. There's probably more than that. Notes aren't greatest for this month, but 2 wins, 2 losses, 3 extra appearances, run-ins leading up to Blood and Guts, all that craziness. Obviously no YouTube stuff. Won his match at the pay-per-view, obviously to lose the match at Blood and Guts. But what are we thinking of Jericho for the month of June?
I also think Jericho was used to explain upcoming pay-per-view matches. Like some of it did not make sense that like Lance Archer attacked someone else. And he had to explain, he's doing it for Suzuki, who's going to be on my team. So they really leaned on Jericho to help explain some of the lower matches when the New Japan guys weren't there yet to be on TV.
Sure, I agree with that. So are we thinking...
I mean, he's, to me...
Good.
I think we're going to debate this because I think he's above Adam Cole. But Cole was in... Yeah, I would put him above Adam Cole. I mean, he was in the hair versus hair match also. And
I agree.
It was a pretty big match, which I still think he should have lost, but
I agree. I think a lot of the Jericho run and stuff became too much towards the end leading into Blood and Guts. But I agree. I mean, it was leading up to probably the biggest thing of the month. I mean, you can debate Forbidden Door or Blood and Guts, right? But I mean, it was leading up to him in
Yeah.
a big blow off at the end of the month.
I think some of this goes to the booking though. Like if you pushed off Blood and Guts 1 week later
Yeah,
instead of right after the Wednesday after the pay-per-view, I think we would have had less run-in time and things would have flowed better.
I agree. But I'm cool putting him above Adam Cole for the time, for this month, given the fact we got that blow off this month. All right, perfect. So next we have Christian Cage. Obviously we saw the breakup of him and Jurassic Express this month, but he had 5 TV appearances, 1 match at the beginning of the month, which I believe was like a 10-man or an 8-man, something like that, which was a loss with Jurassic Express. And then obviously 4 promos outside of that, obviously the breakup from Jungle Boy, as well as just other things leading up to Jurassic Express matches. What do you think about Christian for the month of June?
I think he's going to be higher on my list because he definitely had 2 memorable promos, and even the breakup. Like we knew it was coming. They did the slowest build they could, and it paid off. Now, Jungle Boy's hurt, so they couldn't follow up on it yet. But that also leads into him just being a heel now.
Yeah, and I think as much as it sucks that Jungle Boy is going to be out for a bit, who knows how long, right? But at the same time, like it gives it more time to grow into something bigger, right? Like we have Christian come out, he could be a dick every week for the next 2 months, 3 months, whatever. And then when Jungle Boy comes back, that pop is going to be massive. So I agree with you. I think he's going to carry a lot of workload for this feud for a little bit, but it's a good thing.
And he was just kind of the talker for Jurassic Express. Now he is the leader of Luchasaurus, it seems like, who's going to be his muscle.
Right, exactly. So what are you thinking, B or C?
I'm putting him in B, probably high B.
Okay, so we're putting them between the 2 other people that are there, 2 teams that are there, where we putting them in that regard?
I would put him above 2.0.
Okay.
I know match wise he hasn't been there, but I think the promos and they utilized him good with. I mean, he set up the match he was the one they used to set up the match for Jurassic Express to lose the belts last month too.
Sure.
So I mean, he was definitely utilized a lot through the month, more on the mic than in the ring. But I think when he is given matches, he's going to deliver in the ring too.
I agree with that. I agree. His spot wasn't to be in matches, this month. And I also think anytime you're in, even though he wasn't holding a title, anytime you're in a title promo or like a title, feud or whatever, it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
They trust you to be.
And he was the voice of that team.
For sure. Absolutely. All right. So next we have Christopher Daniels, Dark Elevation appearances, 3 of them, no TV time. He won his only match on Elevation and had 2 other appearances for the month of June. Obviously, we're thinking D, but where are we putting him in the form of, what we got going on down there?
Well, we've already established Aaron Soul is probably going to be the top of the D, so he's not there. I'm not sure. I don't even know how to rank them because they all kind of just are the same down there below Solo.
So I'm thinking he's probably above Angels, but behind Brody. I mean, they've all got that one match, win or lose, whatever. Yeah. But Alan's no longer with the company, so I'm kind of keeping him as like low man based on that. You know what I mean? To see where other people kind of fall in place. But I mean, he had one.
I actually believe match, they lent him out to Impact this month because Impact had their 20-year anniversary, but there was no talk about that at all on any AEW programming.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I mean, for this list, we're not going to count any of that. So yeah, I'm thinking behind Brody. I mean, you could even convince me
that's something they could have. That's
yeah.
something they could have utilized. Like said, hey, he's going to be in one of the Impact Originals match because he was with Impact for all those years, and they didn't, use him to promote anything else.
I agree. And you know what kind of irks me? I mean, now that you're talking about it, right? Like, they opened this forbidden door with New Japan. That's great. They've done stuff with other promotions, but then talk about it when your roster or your signed talent does stuff like that. Like, show that it's not just a one-way door. You don't have to promote, Impact show, right? You can talk about it after the fact. So you're not pushing that show or whatever versus your show. I get that. But you also want to give your talent the spotlight there, right? Like, Daniels has been in the industry for a long time. Like you said, Impact Original, show that he's somebody you have on your payroll, on your roster, but you're letting him do these things because you love wrestling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, I kind of feel the same with Yuta, where they did talk about, okay, he's going to Japan for this big tournament, and that was it. And then when he got back, he's back. It would have been awesome to show some footage from out there, showed his record and all that. You are literally having a pay-per-view with this company, and you didn't even show any of the footage that could have been used when you're sending your guy over to Japan for 3 weeks.
Right. Well, and I think the only reason they acknowledged that Yuta was going wasn't for anything but to be like, hey, this is why he's going to be off TV.
Yeah.
So the fans don't complain. You put Yuta in Blackpool Combat Club, and you put the pure title on him. Why don't we see him?
Yeah.
So they want to recognize, hey, this is why you're not going to see him, so they don't get any backlash. But I don't think they were doing it to help the talent or help,
No,
show,
where
hey,
they could have showed that we're sending people to Japan now.
Right, exactly. And I think that's a hard thing to tread, right? You don't want to give too much promotion to other companies, right? You want to keep, especially when you have a pay-per-view coming up and you want to get those buys. You don't want people buying other subscription services or whatever if money's tight and they can only do one thing.
Yes.
But at the same time, you want to be like, our talent's so good, they're doing these other things. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm not talking about just smaller indies, but I'm talking about other, New Japan.
Any company Impact, you have a serious relationship with.
A couple companies in Mexico. It'd be nice to promote, hey, we're sending our guys there. But
right. I mean, I agree with that completely, especially like FTR, where they're holding all these different companies' belts.
Yes.
Acknowledge, don't acknowledge if you don't want to acknowledge before the match because you don't want, to lose viewership or lose whatever, depending on what night it falls on or whatever, that is fine. But after the match, after the results and everything, if FTR wins against, a AAA title defense, acknowledge that. Be like, hey, congratulations, FTR, for defending your AAA championships, bringing them back to AEW after your match with whoever last week or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Just give a little caveat. You don't have to give highlights. Just acknowledge it,
And I hope for July they do that, especially with Lance Archer going to New Japan's biggest tournament, the G1.
I agree. We'll see. I mean, Lance Archer isn't somebody that normally gets a lot of TV time.
I know.
So I don't know how much they're going to acknowledge. Hey, he's, hopefully they do. Hopefully they do. I want to see more of that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to do Forbidden Door every year, right? You don't want to put these people on TV for a month and then they fall off for 11 months.
Yeah.
Because then they're not going to feel as important when they show back up. You know what I mean? I'm not telling you to give your TV time away, but have them pop up every once in a while or acknowledge your talent fought them, for XYZ, just to give you a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's something that can be worked on. But on the other side of that, we always bitch how everything feels rushed in AEW anyway, right?
So
we're
there needs to be less segments. There needs to be less segments already. The roster is way too jam-packed for 3 hours of TV time.
But even at the same time, you don't, like I said, like with like the AAA title thing, that could literally be something during their entrance. Doesn't have to be anything extra on the show.
Yeah.
And I mean, even if you don't want to give the time to that, I get that. But then mention it on Dark or Elevation. Like, even though there's not a lot of spotlight on that, it's something. You know what I mean? Like, then I think there'd be at least a little bit less of a gripe. Or, on your YouTube channel, not in one of those shows, when you do your like weekly highlights that I'm sure, probably get less views than Darker Elevation, mention, you just defended this at, on this promotion, or, FTR defended, the IWGP tag titles at this, and with a win over whoever. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, totally agree.
You could do a quick 2-minute YouTube to 5-minute YouTube video acknowledging what your talent's doing in other companies that are bigger companies. Like you said, we're not talking about every indie that anybody shows up on.
Yeah.
But then it feels, one, you're promoting those things on your YouTube channel. You're not giving them a lot of TV time. But two, you're showing your roster and you're showing the people that when your roster does things, you care. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think this is the point of the All Atlantic Championship, right? Like, PAC's first defense is going to be in Rev Pro, which Ospreay's walking around with the Rev Pro belt. So, I mean, they've acknowledged that company on this TV.
Sure.
I would love for this belt to go overseas and hit smaller companies, but acknowledge what PAC is doing with it, touring with your belt all over the world.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I hope that that's what that turns into. Only time will tell, right? We just got, a winner at the end of this month for that belt, but we'll see.
Title, AEW World Title has never left the United States to be defended. I mean, it's gone down to Mexico, but not for an AEW match. So
right, it's just Kenny being the belt collector,
and
everything everywhere. Right. Yeah. I think it's something that just helps, and I think it'll help build relationships, right? Like any of those other international promotions you're trying to build relationships with, to show that you do right by those people that you do have relationships with, I think is just going to help you across the board. But enough about AEW.
So all in all, Christopher Daniels is second to last.
Yeah, exactly. The long-winded to get to that. Yeah, for sure. All right, cool. Next, let's talk about the new guy. Let's talk about Claudio. Obviously only 2 TV appearances because we're counting our pay-per-view as a TV. Beating Zack Sabre Jr. and then winning the Blood and Guts match. Obviously, there's going to be some Eddie feud stuff maybe coming up, maybe not. Who knows? With only 2 appearances, 2 major appearances,
2 appearances,
where are we putting him?
But with Daniels not being able to be in that match, I was pretty disappointed because that's like the match everyone wants, is Bryan versus Zack Sabre Jr.
Sure.
So, like, while Claudio only had 2 appearances, I know it was left up to a surprise, but I feel like we even had more Claudio time because we had this hype for this match that with all the hype Bryan gave, it kind of had to be Claudio. Like, we know he's not with WWE. We know he's a free agent. So it's like anyone lower than that would have been a disappointment. Then he comes in, has a great match with Zack Sabre Jr., where all his moves are being reversed. Later that night, he has a run-in, which, once again, didn't even need to happen because of how close Blood and Guts was. But then he's the main guy of Blood and Guts. He started the match, had the big moment, had several big moments. He had the huge swing at the top of the cage, which was insane. And
that was the scariest looking thing in the world. Yes. I don't mean to cut you off, but that was like...
No, it was, but I think it's probably so safe in his mind because he swings people and they never even hit the ropes.
Right.
But it just took the fear level. It took that move that looked fun to scary levels.
Absolutely.
And then the ending of the match was built around him tapping out Matt Menard before Eddie could tap out Jericho.
Yeah.
And I mean, they set up Claudio to be a big deal and gave him storylines in 2 appearances.
Yeah. I mean, I personally think he goes an A. I think he goes, maybe above Cole. Like maybe do we count Blood and Guts being a bigger deal than the IWGP title? That's kind of where it's going to get sticky, but that's honestly what I'm thinking here.
I do. I know the IWPG 4-way was for the title, but it's a 4-way, and he had a singles match on the pay-per-view, which was one of 4 singles matches. He was a surprise entrance to that. And then he delivered in Blood and Guts Big Ten.
Yeah, I agree. I think he goes above that. Now, it's kind of like a lot of AEW stuff, right? Somebody comes in, they have that big moment at the beginning. I think July is going to be very telling of where he lines up, right?
But he is such a big name
week.
that it'll be a disappointment if he ever falls below B without being injured, if they aren't utilizing this guy. I could see him dropping to B and then moving back up, but he should never be below B, and hopefully we don't have to rank him there.
I agree. All right, so next we got some more New Japan guys. We got Great O'Khan and Jeff Cobb. They were on TV 4 times building up for Forbidden Door. They lost at Forbidden Door, and they lost their tag belts. We didn't get a lot outside of the FTR stuff that was going on and the Roppongi Vice stuff, and I guess some of the Will Ospreay stuff. I mean, they were kind of all over for that, which is great.
Yeah, they're part of United Empire, Will Ospreay's group.
Correct. So where are we putting them? I mean, they had just the one match, couple run-ins. I'm thinking low end C. Yes, they were in the pay-per-view match, but they lost their belts. And honestly, they were just there for run-ins outside of, doing the job to FTR, unfortunately. So I'm thinking low C's.
All right, so I agree with you. But with the pay-per-view match, like the easiest people to compare them to is Aussie Open. You think Aussie Open was that far ahead of them?
Yeah, I think Aussie Open had 2 extra TV appearances, even though they weren't on the pay-per-view in a match.
And I agree, because Aussie Open's goal was, I think, to get over Will Ospreay, and I think they did that. Where O'Khan and Cobb, they were there to lose to FTR for the belts. I mean, they didn't take the pin, but they helped get the belts onto FTR.
Agreed. Now, where do you think that they fit in that C bracket? Because like you said, they did have a match, right? They had a match versus Aussie Open didn't, but Aussie Open, I think, did their job a little bit better across the grand scheme.
No one else on C had no one in C had a pay-per-view match, right?
Correct. So we thinking front of C? I mean, I personally think Athena is in a higher spot.
Yeah, I think so too. She's in more TV appearances and all that. So
okay, so we're putting them behind Athena, above Bobby Fish. Got it. Perfect. All right. So next we're talking about very nice, very evil Danhausen. 1 TV win, which was on Dynamite this week with FTR. Big deal. 2 other appearances, with the Hook stuff he was doing after Double or Nothing, with no YouTube appearances or anything like that. Where are we putting Danhausen? I know he's a fan favorite for both of us, but we're taking that out of this equation. Right?
And I mean, I feel like the Hook Danhausen stuff has really fallen off. A lot of the Hook stuff for me has fallen off. He technically made an appearance on the buy-in, but it wasn't.
Stuff. Sure.
He never was shown. It was just backstage, which is so weird that he's such a good comedy character. You had Yano from New Japan in the building, who's their big comedy guy, and they didn't do anything together. Like that moves him down, because how do you not do some backstage segment of the 2 comedy guys from the 2 companies?
Sure. Are we thinking he goes? I'm thinking
it's so hard to say.
You're right. I'm thinking around Britt. So do you think Britt had a better month than him, or do you think
Danhausen had a better month than big Britt? Positive was he was given a chance to find 2 tag team partners, and he created FTR Hausen on last week's or Dynamite. Sadly, I mean, FTR is some of the most over right now, and of course it was loved. So that was a big match, but it was just to get. I feel like that was just the way to get FTR on TV,
I
and that
agree.
was it.
I agree. So I personally think he goes above Britt. And the only reason I say that is because of that FTR match. If he didn't have that match,
if he didn't have that,
he'd be probably below Solo because Solo
and he's
had an actual
criminally
match
low.
to
We
buy
don't
it.
want him this low.
Right.
But to me, the Hook stuff has not been delivering. They're riding around in golf carts or whatever they're doing.
Well, and I think that's
backstage,
ended, right? I mean,
I think so too.
In full discretion, this is July 2nd, right? So we watched Rampage last night. Obviously, Hook had nothing to do with Danhausen.
Yeah.
But I
Hook
agree.
should be mad at Danhausen for not picking him in this big match. But
sure, but then who's the third, right? So I mean, whatever. But yeah, I'm thinking. I mean,
right above Britt's fine.
All right, right above. I was gonna say before or after Britt. So okay.
All and right. We both want him to be higher. Like
he's
a fan favorite.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I only have a couple of AEW shirts and stuff. I don't buy a lot of wrestling merch. But the only shirts I have are Danhausen, MJF, and Punk, right?
Yes,
Danhausen. So that's saying something, you know what I mean?
Danhausen shirts are everywhere at the pay-per-view. I wore one when I went to Forbidden Door. So many people are commenting on it. So many people are doing the cursed hand gestures.
Right. I mean, our mutual friend Tim, I went to his house a couple weeks ago, and his middle son Connor was fake wrestling me and cursed me. Like that was his move, was to curse me. So he's obviously resonating with the audience.
And I mean, I ranked Christian pretty high, and he had one match. Danhausen never needs to wrestle ever again, and he could be S tier if they use him right.
I agree.
I mean, he is so over with the crowd, but this month they just didn't use him good.
And my worry with Danhausen, and this is, I mean, yet to be seen, is he's only had a couple of matches, but he's looked to be weak.
Yeah.
And I don't want him to be the comedy guy that just goes out there and gets his ass beat, but he has cool friends that get him out of like these problems, which kind of that's what happened with Hook, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened with FTR. You can have him be funny, but Orange Cassidy is more of a comedy thing, but he is a bigger deal, right? Like I need Danhausen to be the comedy stick, but be able to defend himself. You know what I mean? Like that should be a big deal. All right, enough on Danhausen.
But it is interesting. We put the two people that are obsessed with teeth right next to each other.
That is kind of funny.
And Britt.
That is funny. All right, so next we have Garcia. I think he's a favorite of both of us. Obviously, in the Blood and Guts match, obviously everything leading up to that with the JAS stuff. Big deal. Stats that I got here: he had 5 appearances on TV, no wins, couple of losses. Which obviously the Blood and Guts match he lost, but he fought Moxley on Dynamite. So if you're going to lose to somebody in your televised match, Moxley makes sense, right? With obviously all the other JAS appearances there. And then on YouTube, he did have one match on Dark Elevation. I'm not sure which show. I think
it was Dark against, was it Yuta?
So he had a run-in with Yuta. So he has an appearance. He has 2 YouTube appearances. But that run-in was with the Yuta stuff. But he won on Dark against Jake Banning.
Okay. I think the other important part, though, is like he was left off the pay-per-view. I mean, I'm sure he was out there in the chaotic run-in after the match, but he wasn't chosen to be in the pay-per-view, and that kind of hurts.
That's interesting. That is very interesting. I didn't think about that. I mean, and I don't know if the JAS guys, for the most part, got left off of that, except for Jericho, because the Blood and Guts match was coming up.
Sammy comes back, and Sammy is the one put into the match.
Sure.
And I think...
Well, it's not a question the company trusts in Sammy more than Daniel.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, that's nothing against Daniel, but I mean...
I think realistic. I think Garcia is the future more than Sammy, but now Sammy's the big move spot guy.
I agree. So where are we putting Garcia? I'm thinking above 2.0. Um, I mean, he had a he had a match
Yeah,
that they
because he
weren't in, but it
lost
was against Moxley.
to Moxley. Yeah.
Right. It's a big money match versus, I would even maybe put him in front of Christian, but again, Christian's gonna be he's building up to something we're
Yeah, they're
excited
building
about.
it
It's
more.
different. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I
All
mean,
right.
with Garcia, what I'm excited about is I hope, sadly, I hope he leaves JAS by turning on them because Sammy has stolen his role. But we'll see if they even go that route.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's yet to be seen. That would be amazing if they did that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. But speaking of young talent, next we got Dante. He has 5 appearances on TV, a couple of losses, 3 other appearances. Again, I put any type of battle royals or anything like that as appearances if they didn't win the match. And then he had one darker elevation match, which he won, but he was in a TNT match against Scorpio Sky. So I want to preface that. That's kind of a big deal for a talent as young as Dante to be in a main event against Scorpio for your mid card belt, right? So just want to throw that in
I mean,
there.
it was very confusing. It was in LA, and
Right.
Scorpio has the Laker colors belt, but Dante was still the good guy out there. But I mean, he's just had some bad luck with Darius always being hurt, getting hurt a couple times.
I don't know if that's bad luck for Dante though. It's definitely bad luck for Darius,
Yeah,
right?
it's bad luck for Darius, and once again, at least AEW uses one half of tag teams when the other side is hurt. And he had all this stuff with Leo Rush. He's fantastic in the ring, but right now he's just low in the card.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I don't even think he's that low. I would say C. I would say he's probably maybe, I mean, maybe above Bobby Fish. I mean, if we're looking at pay-per-view appearances or not. I mean, because he had that TNT bout.
Yeah,
You know what I
that
mean?
makes
Like
sense.
that, I feel like that's fair. And I
And
think
every match he delivers in, so it's great. But
yeah, and I think
that's fair.
I think this month's that odd outlier month with all of the New Japan guys coming in, where if you're ranking where Red Dragon's ranking and House of Black and Andrade, you're doing something right. You know what I mean? Like, so that's definitely a good thing. All right. Next we have Darby Allin on TV 6 times. Leading up to this, 1 win, 2 losses, 3 other appearances. And then he did have a run in on Darker Elevation. I think it was in that Bobby Fish match that Bobby won on Darker Elevation. Obviously, not of the Sting stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
his 1 win would have been the pay-per-view win with Sting and Shingo, I believe.
Correct. Yeah. And then the other 2 losses, I think one of them was Bobby and one of them was probably Kyle. I don't remember.
Which was very early in the
that's
month because he was gone for a little bit. Then he came back to revenge Sting.
Right. Exactly.
And then Sting came back.
Correct. I'm thinking still C.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking right behind Athena. I mean, you could probably push me in front of Athena. But I don't feel like Darby's out there to be a human wrecking ball, and that's his role, and he does it well.
Yeah. And I'm surprised he even got that win where, I mean, he beat the Young Bucks, so that's pretty good, but like in a 3-way match.
But I also think that wins more a Sting thing, right? Like, I don't want to say it that way, but
yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where Sting doesn't talk, right? Darby's not the best on the mic, but he's good in ring. I honestly think he needs to be with somebody that can help promote him. It's how we're putting Christian so high because he's, taken Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus and made them
next level.
Yeah, where I think Sting puts Darby on a whole nother level, but not in a level that can pull storylines through. Pull through in matches and getting the crowd behind it, yes, but for stories, I mean, Sting's not a talker. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is.
And I mean, I wonder if Darby was held back a little too by the people he was feuding with Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly got hurt this month.
That's true.
Maybe, you know, like he might have been kept off for other reasons that it just didn't go anywhere.
I agree. So what are we thinking? You think
right behind Athena's fine?
Okay, perfect.
I mean, this is our first time doing it, and it's like I'm not saying anything bad is about C. You know, like D's kind of sees that passing grade. Well, a lot of people in there that we want to be higher, they're passing grade on TV right now, and D's turning out to be. We just wish there was more for them, but this is where they're fitting in for the month.
I agree, and I feel like, you know, we're looking at it. I mean, I don't think either of us are looking at certain letters meaning certain things, but I mean, you can just tell by what's going on here. If you're on TV, you're C or above. If
like
you're
right now, C is meaning more, especially because we don't have any S's yet. We're gonna get to S's,
right?
But like if we had, you know, half the people at S, then yeah, C's looking pretty bad at that point. But right now, C's not. You know, C's just. We want to see more of everyone in C. So
absolutely, 100% agree with that. All right, so next we have Eddie Kingston. Honestly, this is probably the biggest month Eddie had in AEW. Winning Blood and Guts. He was on TV 8 times. I think him and Jericho are probably the most TV appearances for this month leading up to Blood and Guts. Got the big win, even though he didn't get the tap for Jericho like he wanted.
But it set up storyline for him.
Right, especially going for Claudio, or I mean, even more, Jericho could keep a feud going with him where he could be like, you didn't make me tap, you never broke me. You know what I mean? And that could be a bigger deal. You know, Eddie's amazing. I mean, me and you used to go to AEW shows constantly when Eddie was a big deal there. So I'm trying to keep that out of it, right? You know, even though he's from New York, like our indie darling, I don't want to like have any of that go into it. But where are you thinking? I mean,
he had the opening match in the pay-per-view with Jericho.
Yeah.
He was part of Team Mox Friends, but he delivered the whole month.
So here's my thoughts. He's above Jericho. Yes. I think this win is a bigger deal for Eddie in his trajectory than Jericho. With that being said, is Eddie A or is Eddie S with this ending of Blood and Guts with his feud with JAS?
Let's put him in S. Let's have him our first S and see where other people rank around him, because he's not going to be highest on my list. We haven't done any S's yet, and I think he deserves to be right up there.
I agree. I mean, I think there's a couple of other talent that had better months.
I think he's going to be lower S when we get to more people, but he's definitely
well, I mean, I'm looking at I'm looking at it. If our high end on A is Jericho, Eddie in this match was way a bigger deal than Jericho was.
Like that, so that's right. I don't think anyone can be above Jericho without being S.
Exactly. Perfect. Okay. All right. So next we have All Ego. 6 TV appearances, which is a decent amount of TV. Lost both matches he was in, but he was in the All-Atlantic tournament. So what are we thinking here? Oh, and he had 2 YouTube Dark Elevation matches. He won both of those. But this is one of those things, right? You can win on Dark and Elevation, but I think if you're just looking at TV and that's all you consume on a weekly basis, Paige doesn't feel like he can.
It does feel like they're keeping Paige and Sky separated this month, right?
Correct. Yeah. So
I know Sky was hurt, but like they've kind of kept them separated, but both with Lambert.
Correct. So I kind of want to preface this. I don't think we prefaced it at the beginning. I looked at it as if the tag team did more together, we listed them as a tag team.
Yeah.
If the tag team did more separate on their own, I listed those talents separately. And I'm saying that because obviously with Scorpio holding that TNT championship, it's going to be singles through and through for a bit, which is fine because
But I'm
Ethan
just saying,
doesn't
like, they
need
didn't
a
even
tag
come
team
out
partner.
together. They didn't even come out together.
Right, unless
they've
it was
kind
a
of been
match here and
separated
there.
more. Yeah. But
Right.
like last Wednesday, he fought Orange Cassidy on Dynamite, and Sky wasn't there. It was just Lambert that came out and got best friends kicked out.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and I don't think Ethan needs Scorpio to come out with him.
No.
Like, Ethan
I don't
is
think
a
he
great
needs
talent.
Lambert either, but
Well, yeah, I don't either. But I mean, if he's part of America's Top Team or whatever,
yeah,
that's fine. I'm not, we can argue that point or blue in the face,
yeah,
but Ethan doesn't need anybody but Ethan, and that's fine. But where are we looking? Obviously, I'm thinking C because everything else is in C.
Just the average C guy, and he had one match meant something, and the other one was against Orange Cassidy, which was a super fun match.
Yeah, and I think that's still a bigger match. Like, even though it wasn't, lead to anything, Cassidy's held in high regard.
Yeah,
So
he's
that's
not
higher
in
on
the
the
pay per
list.
view, so he's lower than Darby. He's probably lower than Great O'Khan.
Sure. I would put him between Dante and Bob.
Okay.
Actually, no. I'm going to put him between Buddy and Andrade if you're cool with that. Dante
Okay.
had a title shot.
Yeah.
Bobby was in a feud with Sting. And Buddy was also in the All-Atlantic. So, well, how do you feel? Do you feel that both of those guys were in the
But see, I
tournament,
think
right?
he's above Bobby because he at least came back above Buddy because he did end the month in a match, even though he lost, where Buddy then was injured and really only had that match, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So above Buddy or above Bobby?
Above Buddy.
Okay. I'm okay. I'm cool with that. All right. Next we have Evil Uno. No TV. So we obviously know where he's going. But he had 4 Dark and Elevation appearances, 2 wins, 1 loss, and 1 just coming out with Dark Order. I think he's probably the most prominent Dark Order member in that regard. He's probably getting outside of John Silver. Let me preface that. I mean, I'm thinking obviously he's not above Solo because Solo had the buy-in match, but I'm thinking he's ahead of Anthony Ogogo.
Yeah, he's right there. It's going to be interesting if they do anything with Dark Order in July, because once we know Alan Angels is left. Evil Uno is saying Dark Order is not over. They need to show that now.
Right. And I don't want to get into any of, like I said, this is July 2nd. I don't want to get into any of the Rampage stuff, with John Silver
But that Dark Order reaction got pretty big. So hopefully Dark Order guys can get a little bit more.
I like Dark Order a lot. I think Dark Order, if you do it right, could be a decent feud for the Gun Club or the Acclaimed. We put the Acclaimed in A because of everything they're doing.
Yeah.
But if they were in a feud with Dark Order, we wouldn't blink an eye at it. You know what I mean? Like, it would be okay, this might be a good thing. Yeah, same thing with Gun Club. Like, if obviously the Acclaimed do heel things, but everybody loves them. If you want it to be, Dark Order is your face, but you don't want to blur that with the Acclaim and have the Dark Order maybe get booed, you could do it against the Gun Club and it's fine. You know what I mean? Like, but time will tell what they end up doing with Dark Order. We'll see. But next we have another one of our YouTube, guys with Frankie Kazarian. He had 3 appearances, 1 match, lost 2. One of those losses was to Paige, and the other one was to Andrade on Darker Elevation, which, are guys that are on TV, so it makes sense. I don't know off the top of my head who that win was. Give me 1 second. Let me look here at the notes. That win was against Serpentico, so let's be realistic. That doesn't do much, unfortunately. What are you thinking with Frankie?
So this is funny because we had a big discussion about
With
Christopher Daniels, and I think I was wrong on that. I don't even think. Now I'm looking it up. Daniels wasn't the one on Impact. It was Kazarian.
Frankie. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm mixing them up because they were tag team for a long time here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And everything we said stands with that, where he was the one on Impact. But yeah, I think he just kind of goes right next to his tag team partner.
I agree. That's what I was going to say. But he obviously goes ahead because we were talking about the Impact stuff, and if that's Frankie, then he should get that little bit of a push. Next, we have FTR.
Did they do much this month? I'm not sure.
I don't think they did.
No.
Besides her winning the IWGP tag belts, already holding the Ring of Honor tag titles and the AAA tag titles.
And Dax winning over the crowd. I mean, Dax Cash was part of it, but Dax is up there 6 months in for Wrestler of the Year. I don't think Dax, someone from a tag team, is winning Wrestler of the Year, but he's in that conversation with all the matches he's put on this year. And no, we're not doing up to this point, but he had a lot in June that really contributed to it.
Sure. Well, and here's my thoughts too. And I know we're only talking about AEW TV and we're talking about Dark and Elevation. But any post anything like, the post media scrum, everybody held on to every word Dax said. Like, coming out of that scrum, everybody was like, anytime he does any type of interview or anything, people listen. And that's kind of crazy to me because I'll watch the media scrum, I'll have it on the background, or I'll have, certain interviews like the RJ City stuff on in the background where I'm half paying attention to and half not. Anytime they have something to do with any of that random stuff that I'm watching or listening to, I stop what I'm doing and I pay attention. That's a big deal, that if that random thing that normally you're not paying attention to, because they're mentioned, has you stop and listen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I mean, they started the month with Punk. They ended the month with Danhausen.
Yeah.
Crowd favorite reactions.
Yeah. And I mean, think about it. They're holding gold everywhere but here. And that needs to change, in my opinion.
How long can you hold off to it? I didn't think you could do it all in because Bucks haven't had the belts long enough, but this match needs to happen in September. They need to win on pay-per-view.
I agree. I don't think all in's too early. The Bucks have held the title before. Yeah. Like, the Bucks can be transitional and move into whatever else.
Bucks 2 is going to be huge. If Punk's not back, I think that match could be main event over a Moxley match.
I agree. So obviously FTR, with how much we're talking, is S tier, but I'm thinking
above Kingston.
They're going above Kingston. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So next we got Daddy Ass and his boys. We got the Gun Club.
The Gun Club. Well, I feel like everything they did this month was with the Acclaimed, but I don't think they're A.
No, I agree.
Yeah. And I mean, they were on the buy-in. They weren't. Okay, well, Billy Gunn was.
Right.
But I'm really talking more about Austin and Colton Gunn. But I know it's all three of them.
Yeah, I put it as all three just because. Yeah, I mean, this whole month was them. It
does make sense to be all three. But I mean, they had their, they would say the wrong city, and that got huge boos. But that was to set up Bowens. So I mean, I think they kind of, to me, probably fit in nicely right behind 2.0.
I was actually going to put them in B, but I think Aussie Open did a bigger deal leading into the pay-per-view, to where I feel that the Gun Club should be right behind that.
Okay. And I mean, that's one off of where I picked it.
Yeah, so that's close. All right, perfect. Next we have Hikuleo. Hikuleo had 2 TV appearances. That's why he's on our list. one win and then one appearance, because I believe he was the guy that got put out of the Young Bucks match, right?
Yes, he was supposed to be in a 4-way match in the pay-per-view.
Got it.
But
the 8-man.
There was an
right.
injury. Yeah, there was an injury, so he was the one taken off. It turned into a 6-man.
Gotcha. Then let me real quick look up what I have him winning a match, so he clearly did something. Oh, he was in a 10-man at the beginning of the month on June 1st. It was him, Red Dragon, and Young Bucks versus Christian, Darby, Jungle Express, and Matt Hardy. So that one match wasn't much of anything.
No.
I mean, he should have been in
a
something.
10-man match doesn't really.
Right. So
he had a couple interference parts in the Bucks match, or Bullet Club match, I guess you can call it, on the pay-per-view, but they still lost.
Correct. So I'm honestly putting him in D. I'm thinking behind Solo. Solo actually had a match at the pay-per-view.
And he should have, but that wasn't his fault. But they could have filled the spot.
Right. They could have grabbed another New Japan guy and
and there was other people here. I know not as big of names, but he could have.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter if you're filling in. Absolutely. All right. So next we have Tanahashi. Obviously, fighting for the AEW Interim Championship. He was on TV 4 times. Won his one match on TV, lost the AEW match, title match, then 2 other appearances. Main event of the Forbidden Door pay-per-view. Where are we putting him, with a little bit of build and everything else? Right.
Besides the 2 matches, I think wherever he goes is thanks to Jim Ross. I mean, Jim Ross put him over to the moon. Now, what I feel like could have been better was they did the countdown special after Rampage. We haven't talked about that yet. And they really put over Tanahashi and Okada in that so much that stuff should have aired on Dynamite or Rampage. They should have showed you a history of, especially Tanahashi or Okada, to the American audience. And they didn't. They definitely could have showed more history in video packages that I think would have led to a bigger, not reaction, because he got such a reaction. People were cheering for him at the pay-per-view, but they could have given that history a little bit more and utilized the relationship with New Japan better.
Sure. I mean, we talked about it. Like, this was the one countdown that it felt like I needed to watch, right? I don't follow New Japan. I watch Countdown every pay-per-view, and it's all the stuff I've already seen. Like this one, I was like,
this one mattered.
This feels something. The Tanahashi promo in that countdown 100% should have been on Dynamite or Rampage.
Definitely.
Talking about how I haven't been, avoiding Mox. It's just taken him that long to get to my level. Like, that's that's awesome. You know what I mean? Like,
and I feel like even
good.
I know they've been building to this match for a while, but once again, Tanahashi versus Punk would have even been bigger.
Right.
And it wasn't, he came out to say, okay, I'm fighting Punk. I think that had to be early June because it was right after Double or Nothing. It was after the FTR match, I believe, FTR and Punk match. And it was very exciting. And the next thing you know, Punk's hurt. They tried building some story around it in Japan, that they had a little mini tournament to see who is going to face Mox, but AEW television didn't talk about it. But we all knew from who was in that tournament, it's going to be Tanahashi.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, in his match, he won the crowd over where they were cheering for him and they bought into him winning for the tiniest time, where you knew Moxley's winning that match.
Right. So where we ranking him? I'm thinking A.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking behind Page.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Okay. And he's above Acclaimed. He's one of their biggest stars. Jim Ross definitely put him over to the moon and back. And it's a huge part of it, but they could have done more.
Sure.
They could have utilized him more by showing those video packages.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about more matches would have been great, right? I mean, out of the New Japan guys, we both know Will Ospreay is what built this up. They always say it was Jay White because Jay White, that's his persona, right? That's That's his gimmick. But if it wasn't for Ospreay, I don't think
See, and I'm okay with not too many matches. You don't want to give away too much Tanahashi on TV.
Sure.
But
give us something.
You do need to introduce him to the crowd, and they did.
Right.
Where he had one match where Okada didn't.
Correct.
But he just could have. And then he had the awkward standoff with Moxley. But he was in the main event of
the pay-per-view.
Of the pay-per-view.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So next we have Hook. Hook was on TV 3 times, 1 win, and then 2 appearances for the Danhausen skits. Where are we putting Hook?
I miss the days of Hook being a Friday night. What did they call him? Friday Night Delight.
Yeah.
And being excited to see what Hook did. They might be showing too much Hook in these backstage segments, and the mystery is coming off. I mean, it's been several months now, but I said it earlier. I think the Hook and Danhausen stuff has been a little disappointing to me, where Hook should still be a rising star in this month, probably because of the pay-per-view with all the New Japan guys in, like we've said 100 times. He just wasn't showcased that much.
But do you feel, and this is just me being me, Solo had that buy-in match, right? Should Hook have been, should Hook have had an opportunity there versus the Factory? You know what I mean? If you wanted to highlight him.
Or, I mean, he could have fought someone from New Japan Dojo.
Right.
And
he did on Rampage. We all thought that was going to be the buy-in thing, the way Danhausen made it sound. Ended up just being a match on Rampage, which is fine. But, it kind of takes a little bit of the excitement away from Hook fighting somebody from New Japan, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking behind Baker. At least the Baker stuff was setting up the women's feud.
Yeah.
Versus,
Baker
Hook
promoted women's feud compared to doing a golf cart.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's
a fair way to in ATV.
That's a fair way to put it. So next we got the TBS champ. We got Jade Cargill. 7 TV appearances, 2 wins, 5 appearances, obviously, building up the feud with Athena. Both her matches were for the title. She won both of those, obviously. So 2 title defense wins. I honestly think she is the biggest women talent on the card right now.
Definitely. She's on the most. She has her own faction.
Yeah.
I mean, Britt Baker, I don't feel like has a faction. She has friends that are with her.
Correct.
Where Jay Cargill is the leader of the baddie.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm thinking Jade is A, and I'm thinking she's in front of the Acclaimed.
Yeah, I mean, if she had a pay-per-view match, she probably would have been S tier this month. But she was kept off the pay-per-view. I understand why.
Sure.
I wish they could have worked out a deal with Stardom or get some Japanese female talent here to fight her. That didn't work out. Hopefully we can get that next time.
Absolutely. All right. So next we have Jake Hager. Obviously, Jake, we're looking at Blood and Guts match. 6 TV appearances, no pay-per-view, and lost both of his matches. The Blood and Guts match, obviously, JS lost that.
His biggest moment of the month was when he faced off with Claudio and the crowd chanted, "We the people," and I'm glad they had that moment. But besides that, for the last year and a half, he's just been the background character to Jericho. He's Jericho's muscle. It's a great role for him, but he's pretty low on my list.
I agree. So I'm thinking, are you thinking C or are you thinking D? I'm thinking C. He was in the Blood and Guts match. I can't put him.
I agree. He's not going D because he was in that huge hour-long match.
Right. So what are we looking at? Where does he fit in the C?
Okay, I think he's going to fit behind Buddy.
I would put him behind Andrade.
Okay. That's 1 over from where I had him, so no argument there.
Yeah. All right, so next we have Jamie Hayter. Not doing much this month, obviously. She's the background for Britt. One loss, two other appearances, and the loss was her and Britt versus Ruby and Tony Storm.
And that was the match, or the next time they teased Britt turning on her, like no one should hold up a belt because she held up Britt's Owen belt, but it has led to nothing.
Right.
So they.
So I'm thinking. See, she had a television match, right?
Yeah.
Do we put her obviously behind Britt? She's part of Britt's
she goes behind
entourage.
Britt.
But does she go behind Hook, behind Anna Jay? Where are you putting her in that regard?
What did Anna have for the matches? Anna
I think just has a lot of run-ins. Yeah, run-ins for the Statlander.
So she at least had a match on TV compared to no matches. So right in front of Anna.
Perfect. All right. Next we got Jay Lethal. Jay had 5 appearances on TV, which is a lot of TV time compared to most. Only one match. He did win that match. And then it looks like he had one YouTube win as well. Obviously, they're building to the Samoa Joe thing for the ROH television title.
Yeah, they've been building that for a while.
Without Joe being there, right? Yeah. So
it's a one-side build.
Yeah, which I think hurts it. I think Joe is what would get people hyped for this. Is as much as Jay Lethal's a solid talent, Joe is the person that
he's gonna have a bigger July because of that, but
correct. So what are we thinking? I mean, he's got a lot of TV time.
He had a TV match, so he's in C.
I'm thinking. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think low C.
I was thinking low C as well. I was thinking ahead of Danhausen.
Okay.
He had a lot more TV than Danhausen, even though Danhausen had the FTR thing. But I don't feel like that was, meant for Danhausen.
Yeah, it was meant to get FTR on TV.
Right, exactly. But behind Jake because he was in the Blood and Guts match.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Next, we got another New Japan guy. We got Jay White. Obviously retained his IWGP title.
Which, I mean, not that it's that important. When Hangman called out Okada for the belt, Jay White then won. He beat Okada last month for the belt. So he became champion halfway through the month at their pay-per-view Dominion.
Correct. But even with that being said, I mean, he was the New Japan guy for this build, right? Okada wasn't really the build guy, right?
Yeah, he's been the guy on TV the most from New Japan.
For that match, yes. Not overall, obviously, Ospreay and United.
But I mean, even when they announced the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, Adam Cole did it, and then Jay White was the one interrupting. I know this was not last month, but he's been around a little bit. They've been showing him off.
All right. Yeah, I agree. So I'm thinking I mean, he was in the New Japan title match, right? Like
co-main event,
That's a big deal.
And he won it.
Correct. So obviously I'm thinking somewhere around Cole and Hangman. Yeah. Where does he fit in there, though?
I think he goes right between.
Okay.
Ooh, probably should go ahead of Cole, actually, because he's champion. He brought more to the table. Cole was chasing him.
Yeah.
Cole wanted the match with him. So I think that's a fine fit.
I agree. Perfect. All right. Next, we got John Silver. With John, he was in the AEW Interman Battle Royal. So he did have a TV appearance there. But on the YouTube shows, he's got 2 wins, 2 losses, and 1 other appearance. So I mean, this is Mr. Dark, if you ask me.
Yeah, they're not using them on TV much. July beginning will be a little bit different, but for June it wasn't.
But I don't know. I mean, obviously, we watched Rampage, right? He was in that match, but at the beginning of June was the AEW Interman Championship Battle Royal.
So I mean, he was in
that.
He's above all the other Dark Order guys.
for sure.
Okay.
I mean, this is the question. Does he go above Solo? Yeah, Solo had a buy-in match, and he just had a battle royal appearance. But I think he's somewhere in there because he had
More
more
matches,
matches.
though, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He was literally like on almost every episode of Darker
Okay,
Elevation.
yeah.
You know,
Solo's been there since the very beginning. So let's put him over Solo for
okay,
top of the D.
perfect. All right. Next, we have our AEW interim champion, John Moxley. What a hell of a month for Moxley, right?
Yeah.
He headlines the pay-per-view and he's in the blood and guts match. I mean, the two biggest matches of the month, he
he
is in them.
won. I mean, there was a battle royal to face him to even make it to the pay-per-view. Now, if Punk didn't get hurt, I feel like he's in the opening match of the pay-per-view. I mean, that opening match was Moxley's friends versus Jericho.
Sure.
So I mean, when one door closes, another one opens, and Mox carried this month. Like, he is their biggest star that's on TV.
So, but does he go above FTR? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either, because like the FTR is being built to be this.
Sure.
From the first day with they teamed with Punk that first day. So I mean, this all happened on the fly, but I think he's above Kingston.
I agree with that. He won the championship, because Punk's injured.
I mean, he's had better months, and this is FTR's biggest month. So I think that FTR is just going to be our number one, but we'll see.
Sure. Perfect. All right, perfect. So next we have the only female representative of the House of Black, Julia Hart. She's only had one match, wasn't televised. And then she came out with House of Black for a promo, which was televised. And then she came to the ring with either Brody or Buddy on Darker Elevation. I'm not sure off the top of my head which one or where.
Full month as Goth Julia Hart, right?
Correct.
She had to make the turn late May. So
right, exactly. So I'm thinking D. She didn't do much on TV.
This is one that could have been used a lot more, but all the House of Black members could have been used more. But hopefully she is more of a second when Brody King comes out. It would be nice if Julia Hart's out there with him.
I agree. So where do we put her? I think she goes, really low. She's only, she had one match. She did win that match. Not trying to take anything away from that, but Kazarian and Daniels both had more stuff. We kind of made it apparent that Allen's going to be the bottom of the barrel.
I think
this time the company's done. Okay. All right. So next we have.
But there's
go ahead.
There's more potential there. Brody King, there's potential, but Julia Hart's potential, especially with this women's division, and she's not even 21 years old. Her potential is higher than nearly everyone in that whole row.
I will say
Brody and John Silver, she has the most potential.
Right. I will say this too. Your main thing this month was a New Japan pay-per-view.
That hurts the women's division.
100%. It hurts so much of the division.
Stardom had a pay-per-view that night too, or a show. There was visa issues with that. They hopefully next year it's other women of Japan would be very nice.
For sure. Absolutely.
Not that Julia Hart's going to be the one to get that spot right now, even if they had it, but it hurts the women's division. And
correct.
She's bottom of the women's division, but she has a very cool new persona, and I'm looking forward to see where they go with it. I'm glad she turned.
Yeah.
But I agree. she turned, and she's the only one of the Varsity Blondes even
that we're talking about. So absolutely.
It might not be good for them, but it's good for her, and she's so young that she has a future.
Absolutely. All right. So next we have um, the team that lost their AEW championships this month. Bad month for Jurassic Express storyline wise. But when you look at it, in general, they had 4 TV appearances, both losses, 2 other appearances. You have the Christian Cage turn. Luchasaurus is going to be his buddy now. I left them as a team on here, even though obviously that happened.
I think they should be a team, but Luchasaurus they both have upside right now.
Sure.
But it's hard when Jungle Boy's hurt. So
and I will say this too. The only reason I left them as a team, even though the Luchasaurus thing happened at the end of the month, was it was a one appearance thing where Jungle Boy couldn't defend himself on it.
Yeah.
So I kind of left them as a team just for this month. Next month, obviously, they will definitely be a split thing. And I'm excited to see what happens with Luchasaurus going forward.
I'm excited to see I hope they bring Jungle Boy back as, just like Luchasaurus, a more serious character.
I agree too, but who knows how long he's going to be out, right?
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see.
I actually thought their tag title run went one pay-per-view too long too. I don't remember who they fought at Revolution, but I just remember thinking they should have dropped the belts then. And they might have even been dropping the belts to the Hardys, but they dropped it to, maybe I'm thinking Double or Nothing, but did they lose the belts on TV? Yes.
Yes.
Against the Young Bucks, which was the Hardys was supposed to be in there.
Right.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
I think they held them a little bit too long then.
I think everybody was excited when they got him against the Lucha Brothers, but then it took, they weren't important for a long time, right? The Christian Cage stuff is going to, I think, bring them back up in the card, but it hurts when they were,
But neither one of them on the pay-per-view, neither one of them in Blood and Guts.
Right.
Luchasaurus did get a makeover. It's a black mask now.
Right.
There's potential, but
I mean, yeah, I'm thinking C.
Yeah, I mean, tag team champions halfway through the month, and I also think they're C.
I'm thinking between Darby and Jeff Cobb and Great O'Con.
That's perfect.
I also do think it's kind of funny that we are putting Christian on a tier above them without any ring stuff, because we're excited to see where he brings them.
But he had 2 memorable promos. And,
Agreed.
And they were directed at them, yes.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, more one really memorable one. But I mean, the second one was pretty memorable too, when he apologized because he wished his whole family was dead.
Right.
So I mean, he just stood out more. They let Christian be Christian.
Correct. And it's exciting to see where this is going to move into. I think it's going to do nothing but help all 3 men. You know what I mean? All right. So next we have Okada. Obviously in the IWGP title bout. Not a lot of TV time.
It was even teased that he wasn't going to be on the pay-per-view.
Correct.
And that seemed like it was up in the air. He showed up. This is one that, once again, the Countdown special highlighted him way better than anything that was on TV. And what was on TV was Jim Ross putting him over to the moon because he's gone to Japan and called those matches.
Yeah.
I also, first time you see him on American television, he shows up in a T-shirt. I'm not sure what he should have showed up in. I feel like I wish he had more. He had such a presence on the pay-per-view. It was taken a little away from the TV appearance, but I'm glad we got Okada for that pay-per-view. And if he wasn't on the pay-per-view, I think the pay-per-view would have even had more bad publicity or more bad thoughts going into it, where everyone was raving about it coming out of it, but going into it, if you didn't have Okada, one of their biggest names, it would have even taken a bigger hit. So I'm not saying he saved the pay-per-view, but he definitely helped the buy rate for it.
I agree with that. I'm honestly thinking A, but I'm thinking behind Jay. I feel like he didn't do any build for the IWGP match. Um, he was, I mean, granted, he had just lost that belt earlier in the month, but we didn't see that, right?
Yeah.
That's not something they talked about it for a minute, but it was just a highlight. Adam Cole being right versus Hangman, right? You know, I don't want to take anything away from the guy.
So
He's
wouldn't he
in
go?
a solid match.
Wouldn't he go below Tanahashi? Tanahashi had a match on Dynamite.
Well, I think he goes below Jade. I think.
Oh,
When you're
Jade.
looking
I'm sorry.
at
I thought
it-
you said Jade.
Oh, okay. No.
Yeah.
I said Jade. Yeah,
Perfect.
with it being Cargill because she's
Yeah.
a star. She's the biggest star on the
He
card,
goes behind
women's wise.
there.
Yeah.
And I mean, once again, they could have showed the countdown stuff on. They could have done a better job of hyping him up. Now, they didn't have much time because he showed up so late, but they had enough time to show how awesome he was and some promos by him in English
Right.
on that countdown, which they needed more of that to promote the New Japan guys that the American audience isn't familiar with.
I agree. All right. So next we have Kira Hogan. Kira lost one match. She was on TV 7 times. Obviously, the most prominent baddie, with Red Velvet being injured, right? You know, I think she does great in her role. She only had one match. She lost that match. I'm thinking C, but I'm thinking like bottom
Definitely
of
adds,
C.
yeah, she adds to the group, but I mean, it's Jay Cargill's group. It's all about Jay Cargill. But Kira Hogan and Red Velvet were really good people for that. But
I'm thinking behind Hater,
sounds
but
good to
above
me.
Anna, because Anna didn't
She's
have
on
any
TV
matches.
much more, yeah.
Yeah, and Hogan at least had one match. Speaking of this feud, now we're going to get into Chris Statlander. Statlander 5 times on TV, only one match, but she won that match. And then she had 2 Dark and Elevation matches, won both of those. It's hard to tell who's going to get that title shot. Is it going to be Athena or is it going to be Statlander? And not only that, but who's going to be the one, if either of them, to dethrone Jade, which I think whoever gets the first shot is not dethroning her.
Yeah.
I think whoever gets the second shot has a way better opportunity.
And I think everything we said about that Athena promo where they were mocking the baddies, you could say for Statlander, where I think that you saw a different side of her. I know she's doing this different character. She's not with the best friends anymore. She's kind of on her own. So she's teamed up with Athena. This is kind of a new position for her. And I think that was a really good, different way to see her personality.
I agree. So I think we're both thinking C. She's in a big build for this Jade stuff. Where in C does she go? I'm thinking behind Athena. I think Athena has more appearances. Athena's new to the roster, feels a little bit more.
Her newness has really shown. Like they've pushed her more, so she's on TV more. So
right. So I'm thinking above Britt for sure, because this TBS title feud is a bigger deal than Britt. But where does she fit between Britt and I would say like Andrade? It's got to be somewhere in there. Where does she fit between those two?
See, this is where I struggle in the ranking system because it's like so minute differences that it could really fit in between any of those. You're right. Somewhere between Britt and Andrade works perfect for me.
I'm thinking between Hager and Lethal.
Okay.
Because the lethal buildup hasn't been there for me personally. Hager was in the Blood and Guts match. I don't want to take anything away from that. So I'm thinking she fits right there. All right. So now we're talking about Kyle O'Reilly. Obviously, he's injured currently, but 5 TV appearances, won 2 matches, lost 1, 2 other appearances leading into the Sting Darby stuff. Highlight of the month for him, won the Battle Royal to fight Moxley for the chance of the Intermittent title, which I think is a big deal to let Kyle win that match.
And I think he was perfect role to fight Moxley, knowing whoever fights Moxley is going to lose. And Kyle O'Reilly was a great choice for that.
Right, because he knew it was going to be a good
against
match.
the brawler. Yeah.
Right.
And I think O'Reilly's injury, whatever it is, has hurt him because once again, just like Bobby Fish, it was going to lead to probably Elite versus Bullet Club. They were kind of going that way. I think he would have had a role on the pay-per-view.
I agree. So obviously I look at the feud as being Darby Kyle, like for the most part, right? So I'm thinking he fits somewhere in close to where Darby does. Where are we putting him?
So Darby had
in
the
that
pay-per-view, but that was a three-way or
Yeah.
six-man three-way match. I think Kyle goes above Darby because they gave him that win in the Battle Royal.
Okay.
And he got to fight Moxley, who, once again, you
Yeah.
knew Moxley's winning, but they got the crowd to believe that Kyle O'Reilly had a chance against Moxley going into the pay-per-view.
I'll give it that. Absolutely.
And his injuries kept him off the pay-per-view, which kept him out of B level.
Right, kept him out of
Or
B. I think he would have been B.
Yeah, kept him from moving up.
For sure. All right, so next we have Lance Archer. Archer he had 4 appearances, 1 win, 1 loss on TV, with 2 other run-ins, and then 1 darker elevation match he won.
So his win would be on the pay-per-view buy-in.
Correct. And then he had 1 loss, which was, give me a moment.
The multi-man tag match, probably, when he teamed with Jericho. Just a tag match.
It was, yes, it was Tanahashi and Mox, excuse me, versus Jericho and Archer.
Which,
so,
I mean, going into the
match,
you knew he was going to be the one to take the pin. They're not having the 2 guys fight for the belt, take it, and Jericho's not taking it. Because at that time, Archer wasn't even on the pay-per-view. Last minute, they put him on. And I think that's smart because he is an AEW guy.
Yeah.
And he's the sole AEW guy going to the G1. So I'm really glad they showcased him there.
Yeah.
But besides that, he wasn't around much. He had those run-ins to help build a match for Suzuki. Because Suzuki-gun, he's part of that club in Japan.
Right. So I'm thinking because he had the match with Moxley and Jericho, 2 big names for this month, right? But he didn't do much outside of that except for the buy-in. I'm thinking he's going to go somewhere around Hager. Do we put him before or after Hager is kind of where I'm at. Because I feel like they both had the same kind of roles for this month.
Yeah, he's right in there with Hager.
Right. So do you think that Hager being in the Blood and Guts match was a bigger deal?
Yeah.
Or do you think Archer was a bigger deal?
Hager's moment with Claudio was a bigger deal. So right below Hager, I would go with.
Okay. All right. So next we have Malachi Black. For this month, let's see. He had 3 appearances on TV, 1 win, 1 loss, 1 other appearance. He was in the tournament final for the All-Atlantic, so he did have that pay-per-view match for 4-way for a title, which means he won his qualifier, which is a big deal, which was against Penta. I mean, we all knew Penta couldn't be on the card, right? Yeah. But a win against Penta is still a big deal. I'm thinking being in a match for the new AEW championship on the pay-per-view puts him higher than C.
Yeah, I mean, even though he lost, it's 1 of 4 for that spot. So
right. I'm thinking he goes. That's hard.
Ooh.
I'm thinking
he goes above the tag teams.
You think so? I think 2.0 should be higher than Malachi.
2.0 really had a good month.
I'm thinking between 2.0 and Aussie.
Okay, that's 1 off of where I was, so totally with you.
Cool. All right, next we have Marina Shafir. I was surprised to realize she's not all elite when putting this stuff together. 2 TV matches, lost both of them. 2 Dark and Elevation matches, won both of those. So she had 4 matches this month. But she also fought Rosa for the women's championship, which is a big deal. I'm thinking
we're thinking she's in C.
Yes.
Higher than Britt, higher than Statlander.
Correct. I'm thinking between I want to put her between Jurassic Express and Great O'Con.
That's fine. Because I mean they're building with her and Nyla Rose's team.
Right.
That's perfect.
Awesome. All right. Next we've got Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy could have had an epic month. I don't want to get into why he didn't have an epic month.
Rumors are he was supposed to be tag team champion.
Right. And he barely made our list. He had 2 TV appearances. He lost that match we talked about earlier, that 10-man tag that has no real meaning. And honestly, I don't remember what else he did. He was in a hold on, I can probably find it. The only other thing we did was a promo for the 3-way that didn't happen.
Okay.
So it's not. That's brutal.
And it was a backstage room, not even in front of the crowd.
Yeah, I'm thinking he goes between Uno and Hikuleo. Hikuleo at least was on.
He's the biggest star of the D now.
Yeah,
They had potential. It's sad. It's sad what happened, but for June, Matt Hardy for our list is a D.
Absolutely. All right. So next, we've got Matt Sydal. Another around the D list, unfortunately.
Yeah.
2 TV appearances. So it's not like he wasn't on TV hyping up Dante for his TNT match and a couple of other, Dante help situations. Did have 3 matches on Dark and Elevation, won all 3 of those matches. I'm thinking he goes above Uno. Uno had 4 matches, so Uno had 1 more match. But I think Sydal had the TV time, right?
And I actually think they overused him where sadly when it's a Sydal and Dante promo on such a packed show, that's like the first thing I think about cutting to get that 30 seconds extra to promote the pay-per-view.
Sure.
So, I mean, in my mind, he maybe even overused this month because of how hectic the schedule was.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's nothing against him. I like him as a wrestler. I think he's got, I don't want to say potential, but I'm sure he's guiding a lot of those young guys in that locker room. Same thing with Kazarian Daniels. Like, I kind of put him in that echelon outside of our month-to-month stuff, just like.
Yeah, I'm sure he has a lot more roles and stuff like that, but like.
Right. Yeah.
TV time is so limited, and he got it, so he's on the list.
Perfect. Yeah.
I just feel like they could have. The biggest thing I think they could have done is cut several different people to show the countdown specials, interviews, and promos.
Sure. I agree with that. All right. So next we have Ring of Honor Women's Champion, Mercedes Martinez. 1 TV match, which she won with Serena. 4 Dark and Elevation appearances. 3 matches, won all 3 with Serena. And then she was one of the judges for the Ring of Honor Pure Championship match with Yuta.
But all her wins come against people that in tag teams, basically, that aren't even on the list.
Correct. But at the same time, they're building something there with her and Serena, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, we've talked about they're showing a lot of AEW women's tag teams. I'm not sure if we need another belt in this company.
No, I don't think that.
But they're definitely building tag teams right now.
Correct.
Women. And that's good. More women on TV per week.
Correct.
But where does she go?
I'm thinking somewhere around Britt. And yes, Britt had 3 TV things, but 2 losses and bitching about Tony.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely is above Hader, Hogan, and Jay at the end there.
I agree with that, but does she?
So between Hook and Britt,
I think that's fair.
okay.
I'm okay with that. All right. So next we've got Suzuki.
Carter Grandpa, one of my absolute favorites. So glad he was on this pay-per-view because we weren't sure. But sadly, out of all the New Japan guys, he didn't have the excitement because we've actually seen him before. If they didn't use him in past months, him versus Joe or him versus Mox would have seemed like such a huge match. But we've gotten that match. We're spoiled by him being in AEW before. So him being in that 6-man tag match that started the show was great because it was a different style of match. It was fast paced, where his are normally the slower matches, but there was a lot more people for him to work with, and he played off Eddie Kingston amazing in that match.
I agree, but I kind of have the opposite opinion in the sense of Suzuki is the guy from New Japan that everybody knows. Why aren't you using him to build for this pay-per-view?
Oh,
you know what I mean?
I wish
he should have done so much more.
Definitely.
Because
I mean,
people
they
recognize
his
him.
Goons, as in El Desperado and Lance Archer, to help. But he just wasn't here yet. That's the hard part with some people are still in Japan. They were trying to build for their Dominion pay-per-view. That happened 2 weeks before Forbidden Door. Travel is a pain, all that. I wish he was on TV more. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just think because the audience already knows him, right? So they recognize him, you know, it'll help build whatever he's a part of. And even though it was the Jericho stuff, which I guess the Jericho stuff didn't need much more of a build because we knew what that was.
What a great opener, though. And he was part of it. And he got some really good moments with Kingston in that match.
You're going to hate where I want to put him. I kind of want to put him between Statlander and Lethal. He had a great match on the pay-per-view, but I feel like he was used less than Archer.
Yeah, they definitely could have used him better. This is someone I want to be used better. This is someone I want to be higher on the list. But he had, one match we said? 2 matches?
One match. Then a run-in. Yeah.
And a run-in at the end, which was a nice surprise that he was there on Dynamite.
But I don't think it was enough to pull him higher. Now I gotta move this up a little bit. We're running, tripling up on the C list here. All right. So next we have Miro. Return for Miro this month from being off TV. 4 appearances, 2 wins, 1 loss, and then 1 other appearance, setting up for that All-Atlantic Championship match.
So his loss was on the pay-per-view for the championship in the 4-way.
Correct. And one of the wins was obviously to get there. I forgot what the other one was. And that appearance was just like the go home for the
he had a qualifier, I believe, to even be in the tournament, right?
No,
he faced Johnny Elite.
Right, that was the other match.
And then he faced Ethan Page in the qualifier.
Right. Okay, Johnny Elite was the match that I.
So I mean, he had a pretty. That could have been Johnny Elite's first match.
Yeah. I'm thinking.
And his promos are still so good. And some of it might even be the off-TV stuff that they did on the road too. But I love the promos between him and Ethan Page. Some shown on TV, some extended behind-the-scenes cuts for the road to specials.
Sure. So I'm thinking B because he was in the match, right? That's where we put Malachi.
He was a top pick.
To win it. Yeah, absolutely. So do you think he goes above Malachi, or do you think I think he goes right next to him on either side?
Let's do next to Malachi, but Miro had 2 wins, Malachi had 1. So I'm gonna put
Perfect. That
And
works
they
for
both
me.
probably have about the same promo time.
Yeah.
But Mira's promos, while House of Black, I love the imagery and all that. Mira's promos against God are just better.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So next we have Nick Camrado. One TV loss, obviously the buy-in against Lance Archer. 4 Dark and Elevation appearances, 2 wins, 1 loss, and 1 just appearance. I liked his matchup against Archer.
Yeah, and this is someone that like has the size and a different look than a lot of people on this roster.
Yeah.
I mean, we put Solo at the top there for a long time. I think I would put him above Aaron Solo. They both had losses on the buy-in, but his was a singles match.
I would put him above John Silver.
Okay, I'm fine with that. And this is someone out of D. I mean, Brody King is probably the one I wanted to succeed the most. But like Nick is someone that should be featured more than a lot of these other people in the D column.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the guys on the roster don't have that size. I mean, you know, you got Brian Cage that's going to be back soon or whatever, and you got Keith Lee, you got a few people. But I think that he is somebody that can feel menacing like Archer does.
Yeah, definitely.
Where I feel like, yes, you want Archer to win because he's going into the tournament. Yes. I get that. But Nick is the kind of guy that can take Archer's spot when you need the big man while he's gone. All right, perfect. So next on our list, we have Nyla Rose. Mark, what are you thinking about Nyla?
I have to bring it up, and I got it. Nyla was showing no matches on TV, only 1 appearance. She had 3 wins on Dark, 1 loss, no other run-ins. But this month, she was also featured in the Pride ads that they were featuring on TV.
Right.
With that, I'm surprised she wasn't on TV more.
I agree. You know, I know she's in this Serena, or not Serena. She did have 1 tag with Serena, but she's doing stuff with Shafir, which is good. Shafir needs a mouthpiece. Nyla can 100% be that mouthpiece. But I feel like she was second fiddle to Shafir this month, just because Shafir had the title match and things like that.
Yeah.
Like you said, they probably should have war with her this month. But at the same time, don't do more with her because it's Pride Month. Do more with her because she's a fantastic talent.
But when you're showcasing somebody in commercials that probably were also happening outside of Dynamite, you want to see those people on TV. And Bowens was on TV, but Sunny Kiss is not on our list.
Right.
And she was also in those Pride commercials.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean,
and Nyla's around a lot. I think Nyla's sometimes even 2 top of the card. But like Nyla is like the gatekeeper to who gets to go for the title, it seems like.
For sure. I'm thinking Nyla goes I want to put her around Britt. And I hate lumping all the women together, right? Like that's not my intention.
It's so hard to compare because they're only compared against each other in the division. It's easy to do that, yeah.
Right, exactly. And I don't, like I said, we talked about it earlier, the Jade feud is the bigger feud right now. Those people mean more.
Yeah.
To where Nyla doesn't at the moment. Do I think Nyla is gonna do more because she's doing something with Shafir? Absolutely.
I think she'd have to go lower than Mercedes because Mercedes had a win.
Right, and Mercedes, you know, is a champ, even though it's not an AEW championship.
It's a Ring of Honor champion, yeah.
Right, but definitely, I agree with that. Right there, perfect. So next we have Orange Cassidy. You know, had that match against Ospreay, which
And returning from injury, right? We haven't seen
returning
him for a while.
right, returning from injury. He fought on Dynamite, correct? On Blood and Guts.
Yeah, he fought Ethan Page in the opening match last Wednesday.
Okay, perfect. So he's got his new music. We can talk about that. It's a big deal. And honestly, I think he was on the best match on the card for Forbidden Door.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
And people going into Forbidden Door, once again, everyone's like, oh, there's 10 other people I'd rather have Ospreay fight. And I agree. I would love to see it. Andrade versus Ospreay, which was rumored.
Yeah.
That didn't happen, but Orange Cassidy delivered. Some people don't like the character, but the guy can wrestle. The character would fail after these 3 years on TV if the guy couldn't go in the ring. But he can, and the character is so unique. He's still fun to watch.
I agree. I'm thinking he goes in the A's. And I'm thinking he goes probably right behind Jade and ahead of Okada. I understand Okada was in the championship match, but he had no build to get there. And the Cassidy match was the best match on the card. I mean, you can't take that away from him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm fine with it.
All right. So after that, we have Ortiz. Obviously, blood and guts stuff. Lost the hair versus hair to Jericho, but won the blood and guts.
Yeah.
Had 3 other appearances on TV outside of that, and then he had 2 Dark and Elevation matches leading up to the hair versus hair. You know,
and I love when he lost that hair versus hair match. He took the clippers and just shaved his own head.
Oh yeah, he did not care.
It was nice. Maybe he debuted a new look. I'm not sure. Maybe he sticks with this because I mean, with Santana going down, I know they've done the black and white faces, but he had a red and white face in the match, and it was a little bit different. Hopefully, there's a new character coming out of him because his tag team partner seems like he just went down.
Right. So I'm thinking with Ortiz, he's B, and I'm thinking he goes around 2.0. I don't think he's as high as Garcia because Garcia had that Moxley match, right? It's a big deal. But I think he goes ahead of Miro because the hair versus hair.
But he was off the pay-per-view. I know he had blood and guts.
But so was Garcia in 2.0.
Okay, true.
So that's kind of where I lean with that is.
Yeah, he fits right nicely in there.
So
that who do you right there?
Right. So who do you think had the better month, 2.0 or Ortiz? Like, and I don't mean a better month. I mean,
no. I think Ortiz, even with that loss,
okay.
He the way he shaved his own head changed. It wasn't a normal. I expected Jericho to get his head shaved, and I expected him to be kicking and screaming the whole time. It was so refreshing to see a different style. The guy who won is like, I'm going for it, and I'm shaving my own head.
Right. To him, it was, I just need to get through this so I can get to destroying you, essentially. Yeah. Like 100%.
To say blood and guts 6 times in a row. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. All right. So next we have the first All-Atlantic champion, Pac, which was a little bit of a surprise to some people. I think Miro was what everybody anticipated. But I think Pac is honestly the better choice.
Well, he's been with the company since day one. There was some, he's had his travel issues, especially during COVID. It's nice. People say he's, an underrated talent. He doesn't get the appreciation he deserves. This championship is great to put on him. And I hope he's able to showcase it off in different companies and different promotions, big and small, all over the world. And I think it shows a lot that they're putting the belt on him first.
I agree. So where do you think he fits into this? Do you think, what tier? I guess let's start there.
I think he goes in A.
Okay.
What else did he do this? I mean, he obviously won his match to get in. And he had to win with Death Triangle versus Wingman, which
that's whatever. Yeah. But yeah, he won both his matches. He won his qualifier, which was against Buddy, right? Yeah, he won against Buddy, which is a fantastic match, and then won the 4-way. I agree with A. Where does he go in A? Where does this new title fit into A?
Some of it, sadly, and I know we shouldn't be counting Rampage, but he wins this belt and he's not on TV that next week, which is kind of disappointing. Like I wish we got some type of promo, even on Rampage, which was July 1st, but like a little disappointed from that. But they gave him this championship. They announced the match for his first match is going to be a Rev Pro. It's cool to see this title, which they really didn't need another title, could be done different though.
Right. I mean, we were just talking about, feeling that other promotions that you're spending time with, we should hear about it. And I think that's what this belt's going to do. I don't mind that he wasn't on TV the week after getting it. And the only reason I say that is because we had Blood and Guts, right?
Yeah.
That cut
hour-long program. You're right.
Right. You have an hour-long program. And then I know we're not getting into Rampage either, but at the same time, then you have one match that takes up half of that hour. So
half the TV time this week was taken up by 2 matches.
Right. So I'm willing to give a pass this week.
Okay.
So where in A? I'm thinking above Acclaimed. I'm thinking above Okada. I'm thinking
probably between Orange Cassidy and Jade Cargill.
Okay. I wasn't sure who we give the nod to there, but
no, it's
between
a tough
Orange
one,
and Pac, but I'm okay with that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he won a championship match.
Yeah.
He's the first title holder.
Perfect. All right. Next we have Penta. Obviously he was in the qualifier for that All Atlantic Championship we were just talking about.
Because of political reasons, he was kept off the pay-per-view, which definitely hurts. And he wasn't even given that I'm sorry match like Phoenix and who else? Andrade was given a Rampage the day before.
Correct.
For the pay-per-view.
But he was given a tournament match, right? So, I mean, it's what's held in higher regard, your match on Rampage or the fact you were in this tournament. I think the tournament's a bigger deal. I think the tournament's to highlight those guys, which I think is a bigger deal than just getting your Rampage match because you can't be on the card for Forbidden Door.
But I mean, that he can go right. I mean, we have what you just argued is basically where Buddy Matthews and Andrade is. So I think the argument is he goes right between there or ahead of Buddy Matthews.
Yeah, I mean, what match do you think was better, Pac versus Buddy or Penta versus Malachi? I think the Pac Buddy match was better, to be honest with you. So I'm thinking Buddy takes the edge there.
Yeah, because I mean, we didn't know. We sadly, because of politic reasons, we knew who was going to win.
Right.
Penta versus Black. Okay.
Well, we also knew there weren't going to be 2 Death Triangle.
Yeah, true.
Members in that 4-way. It's just kind of it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2 matches should have been the first 2 matches for that. You know what I mean? So that way it doesn't like it didn't feel known. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So next we've got Preston Vance. Another one of these guys that spends his time.
Yeah. No TV appearances. Yeah. 2 wins on YouTube, 3 losses.
Right.
This is besides John Silver, the guy I have the most hope for out of the remaining Dark Order members. I just don't know if he gets there.
So I would put him above Uno, and the reason I say this is out of all the Dark Order guys, he wrestled every time.
Yeah.
Like they were all like 3-ways or 6-mans or tags or whatever. Preston was in every match.
He's always in the match. All right.
Correct. So that's why I think he gets he gets the nod over Uno.
Yeah.
All right. Next, sticking with this D dark elevation, dark and elevation teams are, members, I guess. We got QT Marshall. Lost at the buy-in on the pay-per-view, but that was a hell of a match that I was not expecting out of QT Marshall. And then he has 5 appearances on Dark and Elevation.
See, he has the
2
same
wins, 2 losses, and another appearance.
It looks like all his matches, all his appearances were there in Solo. He's the leader of the factory.
Yeah.
He just goes right above Aaron Solo.
I don't know. I mean, I kind of would put him as the top of the D setup. And the reason I say that is Silver was just in a buy-in match. Even though Camrado also lost his buy-in match, or excuse me, Silver was in the Battle Royal. Camrado and him were both in matches where they lost in the buy-in, but I honestly feel like QT had the better match. Like nobody anticipated QT to have such a good show.
I think everyone never expects him to be good, and he is the lead trainer of the Nightmare Factory. We need to stop. Everyone needs to stop being surprised that this guy can go, this guy can sell, and all of this.
Right.
And he always takes us. Yeah. Oh, and he's good at getting the booze, which is what he wants.
Right. He's a heel. It's fine.
Yeah.
But give him the respect of being a worker. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think he goes right there. All right. Next we have Rebel. Yeah. Normally I wouldn't put her on here because she doesn't wrestle, right? But she had a match on.
She had one dark match.
Correct, which she lost.
And 3 appearances, which is her standing behind Baker.
Right. Now, here's my thoughts. If Britt was higher because they did something with her this month, Rebel would be higher. The fact that there's like no Britt promos this month, I think Rebel goes behind Alan. I think she is the low of the low. And that's nothing against her. Normally when Britt and Hayter and them, they do stuff, I would 100% put her higher. But they didn't.
And Jamie Hayter at least had a match on TV, even though it was a loss. So she's definitely lower than Hayter. So
right. Well, and I'm looking at her in the same sense as I'm looking at Julia.
Yeah.
Right. And Julia won her match.
Yeah.
And Alan had more matches. Right. So that's why I'm thinking she's going to fit right at the end of this, unfortunately. But that's where I'm putting her. Yeah. All right. So next we've got the baddie we haven't talked about, Red Velvet, who knows if she's even a baddie anymore, given the fact that with her injury, Jade said we're moving on, not dwelling on it. But while she was a baddie, 5 TV appearances, most of them were baddie things. 1 loss, kind of the same as Kira Hogan. Unfortunate injury. I think she would have done more this month if she didn't get injured.
It's like they finally found something for her where she's not flip-flopping and she's on TV because she's in Jade Cargill's group and now she's injured.
And honestly, I think she came out of her shell this month as a heel.
Yeah.
I don't think she resonated well as a face, and I think it's just because what they were having her do, right? But as a heel, like in her match, like I was like, all right, I can get behind this. And then she gets injured, right? Honestly, even with the injury, even though Hogan had 1 match too, I think I put her above Hogan. I mean, maybe even above Hayter this month, even with the injury.
I'm totally okay with that.
Just because she was coming to her own this month, and it's unfortunate she got injured leading up to it. But I really think that if she didn't have that injury, she would have played a bigger role in a lot of that for this month. You know what I mean?
Yes.
All right. So next we have, the other Lucha brother, Ray Phoenix. Ray, 4 TV appearances, 2 losses, 2 other appearances, and then 1 win on Darker Elevation. We talked about the Andrade match. That was kind of the match they got given because they couldn't be on the pay-per-view. I'm thinking he goes right behind Andrade.
Yeah,
He
because
lost
Andrade
that
won
match.
that match.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Next we have Roppongi Vice. You know, Trent, Rocky Romero,
So,
big
so
part
Rocky's
of the build for the FTR, Great O'Con,
Yeah.
Cobb stuff, but they were also a big part of the build, I think, for some of the Will Ospreay stuff, if I remember correctly.
yes, and Rocky has been credited to be the go-between between New Japan and AEW. So I think some people think, okay, it was a thank you, Rocky. You're on the pay-per-view, and they showcased him.
Yeah, I mean, I like Roppongi Vice. Nothing against Chuck Taylor. I like Chuck Taylor as well.
Yeah,
but I like Roppongi
This
Vice
new
better than
Trent-
I like Best Friends.
This new
Yeah.
Trent, I do think, is better than Best Friends. We'll see if they go right back to the Best Friends like they did on Wednesday, but
We'll see. So I'm thinking Roppongi gets a B. Only because I know they were in the same match as Great O'Con and Jeff Cobb, but they had a lot of the lead up as stuff that was going on with United Empire as well. And I honestly put them right above Aussie Open.
Okay.
Because they did more for that pay-per-view as a whole. I'm not saying and I'm not talking about Rocky backstage, right? I'm talking about building up. They're literally building up 2 matches for this pay-per-view instead of just Cobb and Great O'Con just built up their match. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm giving them a little bit more of a push than those other teams, if that makes sense. All right. So next we have, probably my favorite woman on the roster, because of all the AEW stuff we talked about earlier, but yeah, we got Ruby. So, Ruby this month, TV 3 times, 2 wins, 1 other appearance. And then she had 3 dark and elevation matches, won all of those. She's always strong in whatever she's doing. She just seems to be taking a back seat to a lot of things right now.
One of my favorite things they did with her, though, is they used her as a friend of Eddie Kingston in that video package that led up to Blood and Guts.
I agree with that.
And then they used her to take out Tay Conti in Blood and Guts. And that really, I love the way that they did that. They don't do video packages a lot, and they did a video package to help build the match while setting it up. And they introduced a new character into the storyline, and it had a payoff.
Yeah. So, I want your opinion here. We're thinking C, obviously, because of everything else that we put in C. But
I think she's above Marina Shafir.
Okay. Do you think she's above Athena? So let me, real quick, let's compare the two, right?
I'm going to say no, because before we look.
You're fine.
The numbers, though. But I think Athena's been featured more because of she's more feuding with Jade, who Jade's on everything.
Okay, I agree with that. So where do we put her between Kyle Darby and Jurassic Express? I think she felt way stronger than Jurassic Express.
Yeah.
But I don't know if
it wasn't on the pay-per-view like Darby.
Okay, I can live with that. That's cool. I'm cool with that.
Once again, not featured probably because of only 1 women's match on the pay-per-view.
Correct. All right. All right. So next we've got Sammy Guevara.
The returning Sammy Guevara.
Sure.
He's gone a little bit.
Yeah. But even with being gone a little bit, he had 4 TV appearances, which is kind of a big deal. 1 win, 1 loss. Obviously the winner for Forbidden Door, lost at Blood and Guts, big high spot at Blood and Guts. Not doing anything on YouTube, and then just 2 run-ins. Did the Fuego fake out, which I thought
which was featured, which is very good.
Yeah, I liked it. So where are we putting Sammy? Where do you think Sammy fits?
Well, and he joins
all this stuff.
He joins. He was kind of floundering when he was by himself, and then,
with the TNT,
the TNT title stuff was a
mess.
mess. So they decided, let's go back to where he was working best with Jericho. Now, it's getting pretty crowded in Jericho Appreciation Society. I think that also creates stories. So I think, I don't know if he's A, but I think he goes above Daniel Garcia at least.
See, I don't think he goes above Garcia, and
Okay.
here's why. Garcia had that Moxley match.
Okay, that's a big match.
The next question is, does he go above Ortiz, who had the hair versus Jericho? I think that's where I'm trying to fit him in there. It's definitely above 2.0.
Okay, so I mean, once again, we're talking one spot different.
Well, I'm asking.
Yeah.
I'm indifferent. So do you think
I
who do you think had
he
a
was
bigger month, Ortiz or Sammy?
I think Sammy returned and got the pay-per-view spot.
Okay.
Opening spot on the pay-per-view, and he was the big spot in one of the big spots in Blood and Guts.
All right, perfect. I'll agree with that.
And he started Blood and Guts.
Right. Okay. All right. Speaking of all this blood and guts stuff, next we got Santana. Unfortunate injury. He did have, obviously they won that match, and only a couple of appearances where he was like prominent enough for me to like recognize that he was in it. Outside of that, which is crazy. Think about how many other times anybody from JS was on TV. So I mean, unfortunately,
I feel like he's already
low.
been hurt.
Okay, that's fair.
And then he comes into this match, and I know it's a hardcore match, but it wasn't a hardcore move, and he gets hurt, and this really sucks for the potential of tag titles going for them right now. But the story is not even around them.
No, it's all FTR at this point,
Ortiz,
so it's fine.
Ortiz is going to take off, and that's why Ortiz is in B, and Santana should go low C.
Yeah, I was thinking like above Lethal.
Yeah, because he's
or above Suzuki. Probably above Suzuki. Suzuki had about the same amount of appearances, but I think Blood and Guts was the bigger match.
Right there. That's perfect.
All right. So just talking about Lethal. But now we got Satnam Singh, right? Singh actually, let's see, one match that he won, 5 appearances. Not doing anything in those appearances, just letting Lethal do his thing and be in there to look menacing for this Joe feud.
I don't even think how he comes off on TV. He's even bigger than that. Like the guy is a literal giant.
Yeah, for sure. I'm thinking
one win, 2 appearances. Nope, wrong guy. 1 win, 4 appearances.
But I feel like his appearances don't mean much. He's not talking during his appearances. He's just in the background.
The other day,
yeah. I'm thinking the bottom of C. He's above QT because he's getting time. The match was a squash match, which is what it needed to be. But I don't feel like if Joe was around, I feel like this feud would have a bigger, like it would mean more, and I feel like it would help everybody. But when it's a one-sided thing and your only talker's Lethal, and look how low we put Lethal with everything else going on the this month, I think Satnam goes down low, unfortunately. All right, so next we have TNT champion Scorpio Sky. Another injury. I mean, we talk about it all the time, but 6 appearances on TV, 1 win, that Dante match that we talked about where he won he defended his title and won. And then 5 other things. I know they're building to this Wardlow match.
Injury.
What do you think of the
TV?
Yep.
I mean, he had potential to be higher.
I mean, what do you think of the build with Wardlow? Because that's coming off next week, right?
I think the build for Sky for Wardlow has been good. I don't think it's been good for Wardlow. I think it's been good for Sky.
Okay. So what are you thinking? Are you thinking? I mean, he's got to go. He's got to go above Dante, right? Because he held the title, so he won the title. I think in May. He didn't win it this month.
The list shows, where is it?
The 1 win is the fight against Dante.
Oh, okay. So he already had it.
Yeah.
So he has to go above Dante.
Yeah, you can't you can't give we're giving Dante the spotlight there, and the guy that wins the match goes lower.
Yeah. And I mean, it just they they were going to do more with him, but he got hurt.
I'm thinking we put him between Shafir and Jurassic Express.
Sounds good to me because he's not. Yeah, he fits right in there.
Perfect. All right. Next we got Serena Deeb. Fantastic worker. 1 TV appearance. That was a win. 4 appearances on Dark and Elevation, all wins. When I think of her, obviously she's teaming with Mercedes Martinez, but she has one more match and one more win because she did tag with Nyla.
Mercedes is okay.
No, Serena has.
Serena does.
Okay. Serena has one more win. So I'm thinking we put Serena right in front of Mercedes. Only 1 TV appearance, or else I would put her well ahead of Britt, but Britt's got more TV time.
Fits good.
All right. So next we have Serpentico. He had a TV loss, which was surprising, but hey, whatever. And then he had 4 Dark and Elevation matches, won 1, lost 3. Where are we putting him in that D category? Because it's going to be low. He's got 1 win.
Yeah, I mean, he just lost, right?
Yeah.
It's a Page.
Correct. That was that would think that was a TV. He had a TV match though. Who did he lose to on TV?
Well, sadly, we have wrote down says Page. Is that which Page?
Oh, it was Ethan Page. He lost to Luchasaurus on Dynamite this week. He was the sacrifice.
Yeah, so I mean,
I'm thinking between Julia and Alan, because Julia at least won a match, right? Actually, I'll put him above Julia. More matches. He's actually in a TV match, even though it was a squash. So I'm willing to put him there, where Julia just had her 1 win and a promo she didn't talk it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All right, so we're getting to the end of our list here. Got a few people left. But next on the list is Shooter. What do you think, Shota? Obviously, just 2 appearances. One was the match.
They definitely showcased him in that opening match in the card, and I thought that was great. They even had the fireball. He had a fireball thrown at him later. He's a New Japan guy. I hope he's around more. He's going back overseas, or he's at least going to Europe soon. So maybe he's going to tour there. I think this was very good for him, and I hope to see him in AEW more to help train a young guy more.
Sure. So I'm thinking, even though he had the match at the pay-per-view, because he didn't really do anything, I'm thinking he's low. I'm thinking like probably around Hikuleo, around that spot. I know Hikuleo just had an appearance, but like I don't think we're going to see him anytime soon, and I think it's
just
unfortunate.
a one-time appearance or
yeah,
2-time to set up the match, and right under a solo, right above Hikuleo works perfect.
Okay. All right. So next we've got Sting, coming back from an injury. I don't know if that was a real injury. I don't know if that was a real injury, or if that was just something with storyline or not. I'm not too sure.
He came back strong, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So obviously the win of the pay-per-view, 1 other appearance leading up to that, but only 2 TV appearances. I mean, obviously, Darby and Red Dragon carried that story through the month. I'm just waiting for him to come back. But with only those 2 appearances, where are we thinking?
It's still like that nostalgic pop where they do the best of his appearance, where they tease that he's coming down from the rafters, and then he jumps off the entrance ramp, the entrance tunnel onto the Bucks. And then the other big spot in the match he had was the Bucks super kicking him and him no selling it.
Yeah.
And then after he knocks them down, that's when the pain wears in and Sting goes down. I just love watching Sting matches at 63 years old. I just feel like they know how to use him.
Sure.
I mean, he's not being super high, but they just know how to use him for their audience.
I agree. So I'm thinking between Phoenix and Hager.
Sounds good to me.
All right. All right. So next we've got Swerve and Our Glory. Thought that they were going to split this month. Obviously,
yeah, they started
that's not
teasing
happening.
that. I think it's too soon. They're just too good of a team together. They play off each other well. I do like that there's some friction between them, but it was definitely too early to break them up.
I agree. So they had, let's see, they had 5 TV appearances, only 1 match, which they won. But they were used for the Battle Royal and a couple of other things. And it's the beginning of the tease, right? And they had 2 Dark and Elevation matches, winning both of those. So 3 matches overall, all wins. And then obviously some more appearance stuff.
They had a win in the buy-in too, right? I believe that was one of theirs. Right. Yeah.
Okay. So what are we thinking? I'm thinking B. I'm thinking above. I don't know, somewhere around Roppongi Vice. I like the idea of Roppongi Vice being higher because they built so much for the card.
And they were in a title match.
Okay.
And Swerve and Our Glory was just in the buy-in. So I think they're above Gun Club, they're above Aussie Open, right below Roppongi Vice. And I mean, this is a habit, like, it's hard not to fall and compare them to other tag teams, just like the women you compare to other women. But that's to me where they fit right after Roppongi Vice, only because Roppongi Vice was in an actual tag match.
Sure. No, I completely agree with that. And honestly, I think if this wasn't leading up to New Japan, right, it would be them feuding with Team Taz, which they're still doing or whatever, right? But I think it would have more time and it would probably be a bigger deal. You know what I mean? But they had a lot of other stuff that you got to think when you're doing this blood and guts match, it's 6-on-6, right? So there's 12 guys that need a prominent spot for that match. So of course there's going to be, this, like I said, this is an outlier month where there's going to be some people that should be higher, but just weren't given the time to show, you know what I mean? Perfect. All right. So next we have Ty Conti. No matches, just kind of being Sammy's.
She was gone
LA.
for a while. She was, Sammy they were in Paris getting engaged. She was gone for a while.
Mm-hmm.
No matches, but part of Blood and Guts.
Mm-hmm.
On the pay-per-view. Yeah.
Build some of the Ruby stuff.
Build to the pay-per-view. She was there with Sammy. Everywhere. Sammy was in the match, so she's definitely not that high. I feel like it's hard to compare her to other women that had no matches. I guess Reba, but like she made the best out of having no. She had the best out of having no matches by being around and being part of the story and having an angle actually in Blood and Guts when Ruby came out, because she's the one that opened the cage door, right, to get them to escape.
All right, so let me ask you this. Obviously, the baddies each had a match they lost. Do you feel the baddies are higher than her because they had more TV time?
No, I think she was in bigger moments.
Okay, that's fine.
And I mean, I know it's wrestling. It should be about the matches, but she was second. If she wasn't with Sammy, she would have just been off. But because she was invited into the Jericho Appreciation Society, they did the best they could with her, and she was around, and she made it onto the pay-per-view too.
That's fine. So does she
So where
go?
does she go?
Yeah.
Sure.
So obviously above. I mean, who do you think had a better? I think Britt had a better month. Britt
Yeah.
had something that was meaningful, right?
Yeah.
I
This
mean, I
wasn't.
kind of feel like
it was used, but she wasn't.
I feel like maybe between maybe above Hook.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, because Nyla, I feel like Nyla was used in a little bit better of a spot
Yeah.
than Ty was.
And I mean, she wasn't around much, but I feel like they at least worked her into story and on TV, even without her having a match, which a lot of women can't get on TV unless they have a match.
Right, I agree with that. All right, so next we have Team Taz. So, Powerhouse and Ricky Starks, mainly feuding with Swerve and Keith Lee. I like this team. This team does well for a lot of stuff. 4 TV appearances, 1 win, 3 other appearances, including calling out Swerve and Lee during the buy-in or during the pay-per-view. I think it was a buy-in match. And then they had 1 Darker Elevation match. They won.
Yeah. Well, they're definitely not Swerve or Glory High. So I'm guessing they're just going in C. They have so much.
Well, I don't know about that. I think they did more than the Gun Club did. I think they felt more important than the Gun Club does.
Okay.
I also think that they're going to be. I think between them and Swerve in Your Glory, I wouldn't be surprised if they get the title match against the Young Bucks before Swerve and Lee do.
Yeah, one of them is getting the title match. They're not winning it, but that's our next match to kill time till FTR.
I think as much as we're doing a lot of putting teams next to each other and women next to each other, which I don't think we're doing on purpose. It's just kind of
it's just
planning itself out, right? Because we're talking about
it's who where things
fit on the. Well, yeah, and we're talking about where their stories fit on the card and everything else, and obviously the tag teams are fighting the tag teams, so they're all going to be their story together is going to be very close in proximity to the other teams that are having similar stories, right? I think they go between Aussie Open and Swerve and Lee.
Okay.
I think they're right there. I mean, they're right there in the rankings and everything else. I think that's honestly right where they should be. All right. So next we have Thunder Rosa, AEW Women's Champion. Not a lot of TV time, just 4 appearances.
Should have had more.
Yeah, 2 wins, 2 other appearances, run-ins leading up to the Storm stuff.
I mean, a big one is she should have been on the first Dynamite of the month because that happened after the pay-per-view and she wasn't.
Right.
Just like she wasn't on Dynamite this week. After a pay-per-view win. Now, Blood and Guts is probably the reason. I know that. But she was on the pay-per-view.
Right. And a title match. Only women's match on the pay-per-view. So that's a big deal. I'm thinking top of the beats here. I'm thinking she beats Christian. But I think unfortunate as it is, the Acclaim's gotten more time and more everything.
They've used them better for the time given.
Absolutely. All right. Next we have Toni Storm, who Thunder fought at the pay-per-view. She has 5 appearances on TV, so 1 more. 3 wins, 1 loss, which was the championship match. 1 appearance, so doing a run-in. And then she did have 1 dark match.
And her win was against Britt.
Right.
Which was important.
Yeah. I think Toni is probably somewhere around I think she's B.
Yeah.
But I think she's ahead of the tag teams.
Okay, yeah. I mean, she was built to. Hopefully they continue building her, and from what we've seen, they're going to.
Right. So
we don't need her to fall off.
So Do you think
So
she's
Miro and Black are on there because they were in a title match, and so was Tony Storm. They all
Right.
three of them won matches to get on the show.
right? So
So
I
she's the
mean,
woman. I think she can go right before them because she's the third highest woman wrestler right now that we have on our list. And they're
I
just
think
part of the pack.
I think she goes above them. I think she
Yeah.
goes.
Okay, how far up?
I think between Garcia and Sammy. Garcia had a match against Mox, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
Sammy was gone half the month. I know he came back in a prominent role, but outside of his high spot in that match, he had nothing to do with the finish or anything like
That's
that. You know
fair.
what I mean? Like Tony's been doing what she needs to do to try to build that women's roster. You know what I mean? Like she's been putting in the work. I would rank her higher than Thunder if Thunder didn't have to win.
Yeah.
So I mean, and it's nothing against Thunder. I love Thunder Rosa, but I think Thunder Rosa needs more time to be able to do her thing.
And I kind of wish Tony Storm or Ruby. I feel like that should have been the finals of the Owen.
Yeah.
Over Britt Ruby, but I know that's the month before. But she got her win back right away against Britt in a really good match.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I agree. All right.
Tony Nese.
Yeah, next is Tony Nese. One TV appearance. 2 wins on Dark and Elevation, 1 loss against Yuta for the Pure Championship, which is nothing to scoff at.
No, you got it, yeah.
But he was only in a Battle Royal, I think, is the only TV time he got. I'm thinking high D, low C, but I want your opinion. Where are we putting him?
Yeah, I think he goes high D. I mean, but he wasn't on the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
So I think he's below Solo.
Okay, that's fair. I think that's a fair spot to put him.
Or below Shuda, I guess, too.
I don't think so, because I think he had more matches. And he had a championship match.
I feel like Shuda and Yuta came out of that pay-per-view match bigger stars than what they went in.
But I think Nese having a pure championship match,
okay, that's a good point.
Think is a bigger deal, even if it wasn't televised.
Yeah,
I think that's bigger than being in a 6-man. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's a one choice difference.
Yeah. All right. So next we got Wardlow. Obviously, we're building up to the TNT match with Scorpio Sky. That's really all he's been doing. I mean, this is the month he had the 20-man, which I think that stuff's funny. I like that stuff. But it's, as much as I like Sterling, it's a Sterling thing, right? So it doesn't feel that important.
No, Wardlow, while the hype is there, it feels such a drop off from May with the MJF stuff. That was,
yeah.
I mean, he definitely took a step back this month, but they're building to a feud with someone who was injured, so that hurt Wardlow a lot, and they tried doing things to get around it, and it was fun, but I feel like this month was a step back. So, and he wasn't on the pay-per-view,
right?
He's not in Blood and Guts,
right?
His big feature was the 20-man match.
Mm-hmm.
So somewhere in C.
Yeah, I'm trying to look real quick. 5 appearances, 1 and 4 versus Wardlow. 5 appearances, 2 and 3. I think he goes between Archer and Statlander.
Yeah, I mean, all his wins came from people not on the list.
Right.
So that's perfect right there.
Okay.
Which I feel like he should be higher,
but I mean, with this month, I don't think he's done anything.
I'm not telling you should move him higher. I'm saying I wish he should have had a bigger month. I
think if Scorpio wasn't hurt and they could have built to that a little bit, I think they both would have been up a tier for sure.
Okay.
All right. So next we've got Yuta. Ring of Honor pure champion. Definitely 5 TV appearances, 1 Blood and Guts, lost at the pay-per-view, right? Yeah, he was on the pay-per-view.
Yeah, pay-per-view match and then Blood and Guts.
Right. 3 appearances outside of that, and then his only YouTube appearance was that pure championship we just talked about against Nice.
And some of this is he was still in Japan at the very beginning of the month.
Right. I'm thinking Yuta's B, and I'm also thinking I think he's between Guevara and Ortiz. As much as I think Yuta having that pure championship, if that was a televised match, he'd be ahead of Garcia, in my opinion. But because that wasn't televised, I think he fits right between Guevara and Ortiz. Okay.
I mean, he started the pay-per-view off hot with 6 German suplexes, and it was a blast. It set the match into motion.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Now, next we have the New Japan guy that I feel was the build to this pay-per-view.
Yes.
We got Will Ospreay. He was on 6 TV appearances, 2 wins, 2 losses, 2 other appearances throughout the month. 1 against Orange Cassidy at Forbidden Door. I mean, without him here, I don't think Forbidden Door is a show.
And I want to say this, we're not counting it, but like he was in New Japan. He came over. He was in Game Changer Wrestling in a fantastic match. The guy just delivers. And earlier this month, he had a kidney infection, I believe, and he still put on a great show for everyone.
Okay.
And maybe that was late last month. It was like the guy delivers. I know not everyone is a fan of his matches, but they needed to showcase him before the pay-per-view, and they definitely did that. He turned heads to the American audience that maybe heard of him, but didn't really know who he was, and that was a big help to sell the pay-per-view. Once again, everyone thought, Orange Cassidy, I'm not sure how this match is going to be, and they delivered. Match of the night, in my opinion. I believe your opinion.
Yeah.
And they stole the show, which shouldn't be a surprise. And he had a lot of appearances to help sell this pay-per-view.
Right. I mean, he was, like I said, I don't follow New Japan. I know who Will Ospreay is, there's always hype behind him, right?
There's so many GIFs and videos of him.
Right. But with that being said, I think he was the most exciting thing for me leading up to Forbidden Door. He was the most thing that I wanted to see. I didn't care who he was wrestling. I wanted to see him wrestle.
Yeah.
So for sure he's A tier, right?
Okay, so let's compare him to other New Japan guys. He wasn't in a title match, but I feel like he delivered more than Jay White did on AEW shows.
I agree with that. I think he goes, but Jay White, I think that match would have been better if whatever happened with Cole didn't happen. So I don't want to take the thunder there, right?
A lot of times it's hard to put a 4-way match as good as a 1-on-1.
Right.
But probably that 4-way match was better than the main event, and I love the main event too. And that was 1-on-1. So that's right. I do feel like they stole the show in that match. Will Ospreay has delivered in every segment he's been in, or every match he's been in.
Right. So, I'm kind of down with wherever you think is best.
Yeah, I think right above Jay White.
Okay. All right.
And these are 2 people that probably won't be on next month's list.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
They're, I think this B list for us, all these people on B are going to jump drastically because most of the New Japan guys aren't going to exist, right? Okay. So, there's going to be a big pool up there. All right, so next we have Willow Nightingale. Barely makes the list. 2 TV appearances is why she
But
did.
memorable.
100%.
Way more memorable than a lot of other people. Her personality has shined. She's not officially signed either. She's not all elite.
And her match was a TBS title match.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about Shafir having the other title match, right? Shafir had more TV time, so Shafir definitely goes above her. But I think Willow goes.
But her personality is able to shine in the small segments she has, and she definitely will be all elite before the end of the year.
Yeah. I'm thinking this is such a weird question to ask you, because this doesn't sound like a question that I should be asking. Who do you think had the better month, Willow Nightingale or Wardlow?
Wait, it is such a weird question. I'm just going on like, I feel a disappointing month for Wardlow, and this was really, I think she's appeared before this past month, but like
she has.
This was her like coming out party. I feel like for her, where she stands out so much more this month.
So here's a perfect example. We, Anna, doesn't watch wrestling. There are, I would say, 3 people that when they come on the screen, she's like, who is this? Like, because she's interested.
Yeah.
It's usually Jade. It's usually, I forgot what the male wrestler is. But when Willow came out, she watched that entire match. And Anna doesn't watch anything wrestling with me. The music hit, she looked up, she saw her purple hair, and she's like, who is this? Like,
yeah.
I was like blown away on how much she was behind Willow without knowing who Willow is, right?
So do we think
that's why I'm asking you that question against Wardlow?
Against Statlander. Because, I mean, Statlander's right by Wardlow, right? So
I think so, only because Statlander, let me move back up to Statlander. Statlander had more time on TV, and I believe she had a win.
Yeah.
But Willow had a title match. I was going to try to compare her.
And she's made like every moment she can.
Right. I wanted to compare her more to Marina Shafir, who was on TV twice.
So I don't think she's that high.
No, but we're putting Shafir as high as we did because Shafir had that title match, right? So I don't think she's that high, but I think she's between Archer and Wardlow, as sad as that sounds for Wardlow.
Okay.
But I think that's where we're kind of fitting.
And this is like where it gets like so hard. We're trying to rank
people on like one or two
90 people.
Yeah.
That C tier all blends together. And once again, I don't think the C tier is bad because
no, it's TV.
There's not much above them. C tier is probably as big as B, A, and S combined.
Yeah. But that shows you how many people this month stood out above and beyond, the other half of the roster, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so that makes sense. We got one more to rank, and that is the Young Bucks winning the AEW championships. Not defending them at the pay-per-view, but they were in a match at the pay-per-view that they did they win that match? I forgot.
No, the Bucks lost that match.
The Bucks lost because it was this. Okay, yeah.
Now, once again, I feel like there was something bigger planned. Probably a Bullet Club versus Elite, and just injury after injury.
Well, and the Bucks shouldn't have had the belts either. So the belts weren't thought about when all that stuff was going on.
The rumor was they weren't even supposed to win the belts.
Right.
But
they're supposed to be the Hardys.
And Bucks deliver every match they're in.
So I'm thinking the Bucks go.
See, it's hard because they just won championships, but they weren't in the big matches. They weren't in Blood and Guts. They were on the pay-per-view, but they were in a 6-man.
Yeah, they're definitely A.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to figure out where in A, right? It's somewhere
I think above the
Acclaimed. Well, I think it's somewhere between Cole and Pac, but I don't know where.
Yeah, I'm staring at all of them too, and it like fits in there. Let's go below, just right above Jade, because
Okay.
I mean, everyone else was in an actual title match on the pay-per-view.
I can get behind that. All right, and that's it. So
for June of 2022,
yeah,
first time ranking them. A lot of it, I feel like, did come down to the title matches, and title matches should feel important. And I don't know if I was expecting them to have so much weight, but they definitely deserve the weight they had. They make a big deal of the title matches. They're always advertised, and a lot of them deliver.
Yeah, and I also think we unfortunately picked a weird month to start this, right? Because this is the month where there are a lot of people that aren't going to exist for the next 10, 11 months, unless I don't know when the next Forbidden Door is going to be, right? But they're not going to exist for a bit. But we have to take them into consideration because they spent a lot of time on those talents, which rightfully so.
And then on top of that, injuries. I mean, there's no Punk on this list.
Yeah, there's no Punk, no Danielson.
Which technically Punk should be on this list.
He should, but I didn't. The reason I didn't put him on this list is because he had one match with FTR. And then literally the next day the next thing was saying, he's done. So he's done for a bit. So I'm like, we don't want
to rank the champion in D tier this month.
Well, not that, but I didn't feel like him coming out to do the injury thing was only because he was such a high talent that I didn't feel it was fair. Like that was his appearance.
No one else would have got that. No one else would have got that shot.
Right.
But I mean, Brian is also not on this list.
Right.
And in the coming months, once they're healed,
they're going to be
high
towards the top. Yeah.
It'd be sad if they're low.
Well, I mean, think about it too. I mean, Samoa Joe's not on this list, even though I think he's going to do more Ring of Honor stuff.
Obviously, Kenny Omega.
Yeah, Omega's not on this list. I'm just scrolling through to see if there's anybody else big.
Here's another one. MJF is not on the list.
Right.
And we don't know what's going on. But because MJF is not on this list, I think it's important to note Shawn Spears is not on this list.
Yeah, because he didn't get any.
Shawn Spears had a big month last month, or in May.
Yeah.
But it's because MJF had a bigger month.
Right.
And without MJF, Shawn Spears is off TV.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. I mean, I'm interested to see how July looks compared to this month and then how it looks going forward. Because like we're talking about, this is the outlier month. People are going to come back from injuries. A lot of these people they're going to go back to New Japan and be done for a bit with AEW. But I think the idea of, I like starting this month because we're going to see a lot of growth because a lot of people are going to disappear and it's going to shake up month to month.
Yeah.
Which will be fun for, going forward for July and August and September, because we're going to be like, well, we ranked them here, so that's where they are, right? So I want to do
next month's gonna be interesting because we just blew through 20 people in one match, so it might introduce more people to be on this list.
Right. So here's just, obviously we decided we were going to do this late in June, so I wasn't taking copious notes like I would of who appeared and who did what or whatever. But I mean, we did just have Rampage yesterday on the 1st. Today's the 2nd. Just on Rampage, there were 35 talent.
Yeah.
So I mean,
like Butch and the Blade, there's a good chance one of them makes this list next month because they only needed one more TV appearance.
I think both of them make the list next month. I think they would have had their time that they needed if it wasn't taken by New Japan guys. You know, I think there's a lot of people the people on the roster that are mainstays on the roster that weren't injured that we didn't talk about will 100% be on the list next
But
month.
it's gonna be interesting because like Pac in 2 weeks he's going overseas. We don't know if like he might be on the list now.
Right. I mean, he might drop.
But I think that match should matter if he's defending an AEW belt in a different company. Hopefully, they talk about it on TV.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on how much they address it. Is going to be what makes or breaks it, right? I mean, if you look at our list, though, anybody that holds a belt is
so. Should we just
outside of Scorpio is in B and up, and the only reason Scorpio probably isn't high is because the injury.
Yeah. Should we just rename D to Dark?
I mean,
it's very fitting.
Seems like it.
Not just Dark Order, but Dark Television show.
Well, that's what it seems like. I think
they're the people that are the constants on Dark.
I think
it's just they haven't. Dark Order has taken a big back seat over the last several months. We'll see if we'll see. There's been some fan movement to get behind them again. But I think the same thing with stand out, and that's like John Silver has been a standout in Dark Order, and that's why he is higher on the list than other Dark Order members.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see. We talk about how this roster is bloated. It is. I mean, we just ranked 90 people, right? But I would say at least 10% of them are New Japan members.
Yeah,
and some of the other ones aren't going to be around. I wonder if we see, because contracts are expiring or whatever's going on, the hopes that those people that are low on this list that are around get at least a little bit of TV time, right? Yeah. I'm not expecting Matt Sydal to jump from D to B, but he should have a couple of televised matches. I don't think you'll see that with Daniels because I think he does enough backstage stuff that he doesn't care about that.
Yeah.
But Frankie had a big month last month, right? Like, I
think we're going to see a big jump for Brody King.
Yeah. Well, I think Brody King's one of the guys that got hurt by the New Japan guys being here because there wasn't the time for him.
And it's weird because he's on New Japan Strong. He's, he does not in Japan, but the LA stuff. And he was kind of just left off.
Yeah. I mean,
and someone needed to be. Otherwise, there's too many matches. There's too many multi-mans. It sucks, but I don't think everyone needs to be on a pay-per-view either.
I'm going to be honest. I think that's why RC is so bloated, is because they tried to give everybody TV time. Where I think next month when New Japan isn't there, C isn't as bloated, and it's split a little bit better between B and A because we don't have to worry about TV time. Like, people will be more dominant on what they did with the time they had. I think people just didn't have enough time this month. Which makes sense. But with that, time running out.
Is there anyone you want to switch around? Because I think the list looks good.
I think it looks great.
Yeah.
I will run through real quick before this timer runs out. S and A, right? So we have number 1, FTR. Fantastic month. 2, John Moxley won the Intermittent Championship. 3, Kingston. Big win for the Blood and Guts feud. Big win for his career. 4, Jericho. 5, Claudio. 6, Ospreay. 7, Jay White. 8, Adam Cole. 9, Hangman Adam Page. 10, Tanahashi. 11, the Young Bucks. 12, Jade Cargill. 13, Pac. 14, Orange Cassidy. 15, Okada. And then I guess rounding out number 16, like the honorable mention of the top of the tier, would be the Acclaimed.
I think it's a really good list.
Absolutely. Can't wait to do this next month, see how it changes everything. But if anybody's listening, thanks for listening, and can't wait to do this next month.